Hey guys. This is what if Naruto time traveled to the future. 12-year-old Naruto often dreams about the future, but when he is launched 4 years into it, not everything is as he envisioned. The Fourth World War is just around the corner, and Akatsuki is more dangerous than ever. But hiding and doing nothing has never been Naruto's style. To change the course of history, he searches for the truth about the future, and a way back to the past. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 1 Dawn. 100,000 organic clones made from the cells of Senju Hashirama grew in the vast cavern, rustling and shifting beneath the unsuspecting earth. Kabuto looked down at them from the water's surface and cracked a sly smile. Tobi brought Kabuto to this cavern after accepting him as an ally for the upcoming Fourth Shinobi War. But something had changed within Kabuto, and the alliance was no longer enough. That was why he was in this room alone, in secret, for the sake of his own ambitions. Well, not entirely alone. He knelt down on the water to get a better look at what lurked below. The silence defied the sheer amount of life in this cave. The reanimated bodies of Itachi and Nagato were standing behind him, still and silent as everything else, mindless puppets with blank eyes and vacant expressions. The one presence that Kabuto didn't take into account, however, was the one that watched him with suspicion. Setsu the original didn't trust Kabuto. Neither did Tobi, for that matter, which was why Zetsu was now keeping an eye on their new partner. His head was poking out of the wall high up in the dark heights of the cavern, watching Kabuto carefully as he looked down at Setsu's thousands of weaker siblings. What an incredible source of life energy! Hashirama was a really remarkable man, Kabuto murmured. Kabuto inclined his head toward the stem of the great plant, delivering a silent command, and Nagato walked forward and laid his hands on it. And what does he plan to do with that? Setsu wondered. Nagato was absorbing chakra from the plant. His silver hair turned blood red, and Kabuto grinned to himself again. He stuck his hand under the water and shot a stream of snakes down toward the mob. The Zetsu clones didn't react, not even when the snakes wrapped themselves around a single one and tore it away from its brethren. It was dragged up to the surface and smuggled into Kabuto's voluminous cloak by the time Nagato came walking back to his side. "Let's go," Kabuto said, and flickered away. Itachi and Nagato followed behind him. Kabuto decided to abandon his alliance with the fake Madara for one simple reason. It was called the time-spanning incarnation jutsu. When Kabuto first discovered the hand-bound research notebook in a hidden room of Orochimaru's lair, he never expected the incomplete jutsu would become an obsession for him. Since the moment he discovered the seal and started piecing its missing elements together, it gradually wormed into his thoughts until he forgot everything else. The war, Edo Tensei, all of it. At the time, he didn't question why. The idea was just too intoxicating to him. Why should he limit himself to stealing the fixed powers of shinobi that were dead and gone, if it were possible to take living ones, still malleable, still changing? To take them from a younger age, while their potential was still being realized? All it required was the summoning formula, the right power, and a compatible vessel. It was harder than it sounded. If his theory was correct, this jutsu had the potential to utterly destroy the user. Time travel was a crime against the natural order of things, after all. As a rule, the past was meant to stay pressed and preserved between the pages of time and never opened again. That was why the idea to make one of his Edo Tensei puppets perform it was nothing less than sheer genius. With the energy that he made Nagato absorb, and the fact that the undead couldn't die even if the jutsu backfired, Kabuto felt certain it would work. And he'd chosen the perfect medium for the summoning. A Zetsu clone was a body with amazing powers of adaptability, one that would maintain its underlying properties even after superimposing another will upon it. It had the capacity to imitate living tissue almost flawlessly, yet it wasn't bound by the same rules. Kabuto scanned over his work with satisfaction. The stolen Zetsu clone was laid out on the stone floor of one of Orochimaru's old hideouts. The hand-bound notebook was open on its chest, the summoning formula, meticulously redrawn onto a new spread of pages. Kabuto didn't understand every nuance of the formula, but he didn't need to in order to copy it down and use it. There was no danger to himself, after all. And if it endangered the one he intended to drag out of the past, what of it? Naruto. Can you make a delivery for me, since you're done with that? Naruto peered at Tucci over the edge of his ramen bowl, slurping down the last of the broth. He set the bowl down with a loud, contented sigh and rubbed the back of his head. "I'd like to, Gramps, but I'm supposed to be meeting Irika-sensei here. He's running late, but—" "Come on," Tucci insisted, putting the delivery box on the counter. "I'll tell him where you are. That bowl you just had as an appetizer will be on me." "All right." Naruto snatched the bill slip and picked up the box. "I'll be right back." Naruto jogged lightly through the village, feeling very content with the world. It was always nice to see home again after a mission, but the last one was not only dangerous, even Orochimaru showed up at one point. It was also more important than any before. After all the pain, terror, and uncertainty left in the village following the disastrous Chunin exams and the Sandaime Hokage's death, the village had a strong pillar to rebuild on again. He had brought them a Hokage, and all the security and hope that came with the title. Jiraiya had been there too, of course. It's not like he could take all the credit. Jiraiya had taken care of most of the whole fighting super dangerous missing Nin part. Facing 2 Akatsuki members and Orochimaru within the span of a single journey would have been a little too much for Naruto to handle alone. Still, it seemed like most people didn't even realize that Naruto had gone on the mission to find Tsunade, much less act grateful for his help. It was disappointing not to get the recognition his heroic efforts deserved. He couldn't be upset at a time like this, though. Not when it felt like the great oppressive blanket of fear and warning had finally been lifted off the village. "Delivery!" Naruto chirped, stepping into the Yamanaka flower shop. "Naruto?" Ino stood up from where she had been sitting behind the counter. "Oh, good." A tall, vaguely familiar man with a long blonde ponytail came walking in from the back. "Since Mom is out today, I thought we'd have lunch in the shop, Ino. Fast service. Thanks for bringing that, Naruto-kun." Ino pointed at Naruto accusingly, other hand on her hip. "But why are you the one bringing it? Is there even anything left in that box? Pfft, why would I need your ramen? Irika-sensei's back there waiting to treat me. Later." After raising his hand in a brief wave, he turned to run out. "Wait, Naruto!" Ino called after him, and he turned back. "Sasuke-kun, has there been any?" Naruto looked at her hopeful, anxious face and broke into a wide grin. "I finally dragged Tsunade-bachan down to the hospital a few hours ago," he said, giving the sparkling thumbs up he'd learned from Lee. "She used her medical ninjutsu on Sasuke and he woke up right away. He's going to be alright." Ino covered her mouth, tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank goodness. You can go to the hospital after we eat," Inoichi said gently. "I'll look after things here." Smiling, Naruto turned and dashed out. That warm feeling was expanding in his chest, making his heart float like a balloon. No, right now, it didn't matter. It was enough to know that he'd had a part in something significant for the village, and his friends. It was worth it to see Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei open their eyes again, and Sakura's smile. Naruto went back the way he came, dodging civilians pushing wheelbarrows and carrying timber, repairing the damage from Orochimaru's attack. Everyone was working cheerfully, banded together and confident in the village's strength. They no longer had the anxious air of a leaderless people. As expected, Irika was there when he got back. He lipped up when Naruto came in, slurping the noodles that were hanging halfway out of his mouth. "Irika-sensei!" Naruto cried indignantly. "You couldn't wait until I got back?" Irika snorted as Naruto slid into the seat beside him, and Tucci quickly put a fresh bowl of ramen down. "You started it. You didn't wait until I got here either, Tucci-san told me." "But—" Naruto frowned. "I was hungry and it was boring just sitting around here waiting. What made you so late anyway? Tsunade-bachan reminded me I was meeting you, and I ran here all the way from the hospital, but you ended up way later than me. If I'd have known, I could have stayed around to see what she thought of Lee's injuries." "Right, sorry," Irika said. "I was in a meeting and it ran over a bit. Everyone is overworked. Academy classes have been disrupted so often lately that we're trying to negotiate a way to cover one another's classes, if someone has to leave suddenly or is needed for a mission." Naruto mumbled through a mouthful of ramen. Irika watched him out of the corner of his eye with a small smile. "I heard that your trip ended up being pretty interesting. It's not every day you get to see all 3 Sannin in action at once. I bet the landscape didn't fare too well." "It was incredible," Naruto said eagerly. "And I won this from Bachan because she bet I couldn't learn my new jutsu in a week." He pulled the first Hokage's necklace from under his shirt. Wait till you see my new jutsu! It's just as good as Sasuke's Chidori. He got ahead of me in the exams, but I figure we're on equal ground now. You really have grown quickly, Naruto. It seems like just yesterday you wanted to borrow my headband. Right? Naruto said gleefully. Even someone like Erosenin acknowledged me and taught me the Rasengan. It's clear that I'm naturally awesome. Now, you have a long way to go yet, Iruka said with mock sternness, waving his chopsticks. The village is going to need that strength in a time like this. Get ready to work even harder. They were getting back on their feet. In 3 days, a new Hokage would be inaugurated, and everything would be alright. That was the mantra everyone from the civilians to the elites repeated to themselves. Isn't Tsunade-sama amazing? Sakura said, her eyes shining with awe as she and Naruto looked up at the Hokage tower from below. It's strange seeing her in the Hokage hat after seeing an old man wear it for so long. Ha! Naruto said, hands linked behind his head casually. She's pretty old too, you know. She just uses some technique to look young. But yeah, she's still pretty cool. Just by her presence, you can tell she's a powerful shinobi. Just like Jiraiya-sama, Sakura said. And Orochimaru was also like that, in the Forest of Death, even though that was more terrifying than anything. It makes you realize what it means to be Kage level. She smiled cheekily, and Naruto grumbled. Whatever. I wouldn't want it to be too easy, or it wouldn't be worth going for, he said. We can only go up from here, Sakura-chan. Sakura absently touched the ends of her newly shortened hair. I know I don't have a chance of being promoted to Chunin this time, since I didn't pass the preliminaries, but maybe you or Sasuke-kun will. After everything that happened, it's really made me realize that I have to become strong enough to handle things on my own in a situation. It can't all go one way. If we're a team, we protect one another. Her eyes drifted to where Sasuke and Kakashi were standing behind everyone else. You're right, but I'm not going to get knocked out and make you have to defend me ever again. Naruto crossed his arms. That was just embarrassing. Sakura's eyes flashed. Oh, so it's embarrassing to be defended by me? You're welcome. Naruto winced. No, I didn't mean it like that, Sakura-chan. I just meant. I should have been there to help, but I wasn't. And we had to rely on other teams until Sasuke took out those sound guys. I still don't even really know what happened with all of that. Oh, Kiba butted in. Teammate had been beside them since the start of the inauguration. Do either of you know when they're supposed to tell us who made Chunin? Whoever made it would probably know by now. Shino intoned. Why? Because Kurenai-sensei said the Godain would follow the choice the Sandaime already made. That's probably true, but she's bound to have been busy with other things besides the Chunin selection. And there are some other people who get a say in it too, Sakura said. I haven't seen anyone promoted yet, Kiba said. God, it would be so annoying if they just called it off and no one gets it. No way, the other countries wouldn't stand for that, Sakura said dismissively, waving a hand. If no one makes it, it'll be because no one was good enough. Why do you care anyway? You lost in the preliminaries like I did. Well, Naruto beat me that time, but if he beat me to Chunin too, I'd have to seriously consider quitting as a ninja. He dodged Naruto's punch with a cackle and hid behind Hinata, who spluttered at being brought into the middle of it. Akamaru barked excitedly from on top of Kiba's hood. Bastard! Naruto fumed as Sakura held him back. I'll take you on any time. And quit hiding behind Hinata. He didn't mean it, Naruto-kun, he was just trying to provoke you. Hinata started. Her words were drowned out by the sound of applause. They had missed the end of Tsunade's address, and now it was over. Guiltily, they broke apart and joined the applause. Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the elders left the roof of the tower, and the crowd was gradually dispersing. A lot of people had duties and missions to get back to already, but those that didn't lingered around. Most of the stores and restaurants were staying open late tonight, and it was a sort of holiday, as most of the non-essential shinobi and civilian workers had the day off. How do you feel, Sasuke-kun? Sakura asked as she and Naruto drifted back to the rest of their team. Tired, he said, not bothering to elaborate. He looked tired. There were bags under his eyes, even though he'd spent so much time sleeping recently. You just need to go home and rest, Naruto said gruffly. You're still better off than you were yesterday, so I'm sure you'll be at full strength by tomorrow. Maybe, Maybe we should ask if our team can wait a little longer before we go on any missions? Sakura glanced from Sasuke to Kakashi. No, Sasuke said, his voice sharpening. I'm not so weak I can't handle whatever stupid little D or C-ranked mission they decide to send us on next. It's better than sitting around here doing nothing. Well, Kakashi said, and he smiled when they all turned to look at him. Just so you all know, the next one will be on your own. I have a solo mission starting, but you three will be sent out once you are ready, whether I am back or not. Maybe it will be more of a challenge than you think. Sasuke just gave a HN in response, as usual, which rolled off of Kakashi, as usual. I have to be up very early, unfortunately, so I will see you all later, Kakashi said. He casually withdrew his Ika paradise, and walked off with his nose buried in it. Early? That sounds suspicious to me, Naruto said. A mission on our own. Sakura bit her lower lip. Don't worry, Sakura-chan. After all, it can't be worse than the Forest of Death, and we did that on our own, Naruto said confidently. And Sasuke has his Chidori once he gets better, and I just got a super awesome new jutsu that I didn't have back then, either. He hinted the last part heavily while looking at Sasuke, but the other boy didn't take the bait. He just stood there with his hands in his pockets and a dispassionate expression. I guess I'm going home, Sasuke said. Don't bother me tonight unless it's about a mission or making chunin. I'm going home too, Sakura said quickly. I'll walk with you part of the way. Sasuke didn't answer, but she started after him anyway when he didn't say no. But Sakura-chan, I thought we could. Naruto started, but the other two were walking away and had stopped listening. Naruto sighed and scratched his head. Now what? Evening was gathering in the edges of the sky, and he hadn't eaten since the morning. It'd be boring to go somewhere alone, but he was reluctant to leave the celebratory atmosphere downtown. Naruto settled for people watching on a wall while he slowly finished off some dango. I wonder how Gaara's doing, he thought. As the sun dropped lower in the sky and he was just thinking about going home, Jiraiya found Naruto and told him that he was leaving Konoha tonight. What? Naruto jumped down from the wall he'd been sitting on. But why? You just got back to the village. And Tsunade-bachan is your old teammate, right? Why don't you want to stay around a little longer? I'm not sure if Shizen-nichan can keep her in line alone. I was invited to the party, of course, but me being there wouldn't help at all, Jiraiya said, shaking his head. Besides, it's going to be a more diplomatic affair than Tsunade's really wanting anyway. The elders and the clan heads are going to be there, so it's all very above board. In other words, you're trying to escape the politics, Naruto guessed. Jiraiya grimaced. Hey now, I really have some things to do. I help Konoha maintain its ties in other lands, after all. That's especially important now that we have a new Hokage. A longtime teammate has the best insight into her personality and policies. You mean Konoha's ties in other lands' bathhouses? Naruto muttered. Jiraiya just smiled and ruffled Naruto's hair. You'll see me again really soon. I have just a few important things to check on, and depending on that, I'll need to come back here for an important mission. What's that? Naruto asked quickly. If it concerns you, then you'll know about it then. If not, you don't have to worry about it. Later, kid. He waved with a smirk and walked off through the thinning crowd, heading in the direction of the village gate. Naruto huffed mildly and stretched. All the stands and booths were packing up, so he decided to finally go home, too. Walking lazily through the streets, Naruto's thoughts drifted back to the inauguration. He imagined himself standing in front of a large crowd wearing the Hokage hat and looking out over everyone with his arms crossed in a cool pose, looking older, and stronger, and ravishingly handsome, of course. His teammates behind him, and his village before him, he'd say something impossibly badass, but also very profound and inspirational. And he would invite Tsunade to his party and let her drink and gamble as much as she wanted. The thought made him grin widely to himself. When Naruto got into his pajamas and crawled into bed minutes after arriving home, he was still so absorbed in fantasizing about the future that, later on, he would wonder whether everything that came after was just a byproduct of his overactive imagination. There was one problem with that theory: none of his visions of the future included war. Chapter 2: Dream. Naruto grumbled in a half-conscious protest against the sun filtering through his eyelids. He rolled over and made to pull the covers over his head, but couldn't find them. Frowning slightly, he moved his hand around to try to find his blanket, but he still couldn't feel it. Annoyed, he opened his eyes and blinked in confusion. Naruto sat up hesitantly and looked around. He was in the forest, at the base of a very large tree. The light looked like early morning, and the air was slightly chilly. He was wearing the same thing he went to bed in, a pair of orange shorts and a black shirt with a spiral on it. What the hell? Pause. Naruto shook his head and slapped the sides of his face, but nothing changed. It didn't feel like a dream. Was it genjutsu? He stood up and looked around uneasily. They were taught to search for anything strange, to tip of the presence of an illusion. Naruto squinted toward the edge of the trees, where the sun shone brighter, and thought he could see a few wooden buildings in the distance. If this is an illusion, I'm probably supposed to go there, and then it's a trap, he murmured, scratching his head. Oh well. Facing it directly was way better than sitting around waiting. He turned and ran up the side of the tree he'd been laying under, and only made it up a couple of meters before his feet detached. It was so unexpected that Naruto fell backwards with an undignified cry and landed hard enough to knock the wind out of him. Ow! A few leaves fluttered down and landed on his hair and face. He stood up and shook them off. What was that? Naruto held up his hand in a half-rammed seal and concentrated on his chakra. To his surprise, it was almost completely depleted. He could feel a small trickle that was steadily replenishing his reserves, but it felt odd, slippery to control. And the fox's energy, too. He could sense it. That was good at least, but barely. If his own lack of chakra was worrying, that was downright alarming. Man, this is bad. Naruto opened his eyes. He wished that he'd gotten Sakura to teach him how to dispel genjutsu, so he'd at least be able to tell whether all this was real or not. But as far as he knew, even the most skilled users couldn't keep a genjutsu going forever, so that question would soon resolve itself one way or another. Deciding to act rather than trying to guess at the details, Naruto started toward the distant buildings. If he wanted to figure out where he was, or find the person casting this illusion on him, that was surely the place to go. Trap or not. It was a small village Naruto didn't recognize. Just a collection of farmhouses here and there, with fields stretching all around. A few people were in the fields already, tending to the crops. Naruto could see a few chickens pecking on the side of the road near a dusty building. He squared his shoulders and walked onto the road, keeping an eye out all around him. At least this place still looked like the land of fire. Maybe there was a small glimmer of hope. As he approached, a boy about his age that was hoeing near the edge of the road stopped in his work to stare at him. This was it. Naruto took a deep breath and put on a friendly look. Hey! I was wondering if, Dad! Kaito! There's a weird guy here! The boy yelled toward what looked like a workshed nearby, cupping his hands around his mouth for volume. No, wait! Naruto said, waving his hands. I'm not anyone suspicious, what are you yelling about, Shinji? A middle-aged looking man and a younger man came out of the shed. They were wearing thick gloves and belts with woodworking tools in them. Sorry, I didn't mean to startle anyone, Naruto said. I'm just lost, and I was hoping you could give me some directions. He came out of the woods, Shinji said, holding the tool like he wanted to run Naruto through with it. He might be a bandit. What the hell makes you think that? Naruto reached the end of his temper. Do you have dirt clods for eyes? Funny kid. The young man, Kaito, laughed. The older man sighed. Calm down, Shinji. Please forgive my son, he added to Naruto. The shinobi that was posted here on watch had to be called back to Konoha recently, so we're all a little on edge. We've heard that criminals have been taking advantage of places where the shortage is leaving them undefended. Oh, so that's it. Naruto was still confused, but at least he was in his own country. Though, he never considered that the shortage would affect ordinary citizens like this. Iruka hadn't been kidding about how serious things were. I'm actually on my way to Konoha right now, Naruto said. Can you tell me how to get there from here? It's not far, but... Kito's eyes traveled over Naruto's odd appearance, from his bright clothes to his shoeless feet. You should probably rethink going there right now. The village is still recovering from the attack, and Hokage-sama isn't letting visitors come in for the most part, except for aid workers. Most of our people went to help build in order to feel a little protected within the walls, since Tsugi-san had to be called back into duty. It's a mess over there. Naruto frowned. Were things really that bad? That's alright, I'm not a visitor. I may not look it right now, but I'm actually a Konoha shinobi. Uzumaki Naruto, nice to meet you, he added brightly. The three glanced at one another and all burst out laughing at the same time. What's so funny? Naruto fumed. Okay, so he didn't exactly look very official in his night clothes. But that wasn't his fault. So, you're the Land of Fire's Jinchuriki? Konoha's hero? The one who stopped pain all by himself? The old man chuckled. Pain, Jinchuriki? Naruto tilted his head uncomprehendingly, scowling. Now he was confused and annoyed. Unfortunately, that seemed to amuse them even more. I heard he was still pretty young, but there's no way he is a little squirt like you, Kito said. It's cute that you look up to him, kid, but it's 100 years too soon for you to go around pretending to be him. Naruto was getting frustrated. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I am most definitely Uzumaki Naruto. He slapped a hand on his chest. And I am a Konoha shinobi, and I need to get back to my village before Tsunade-bachan finds out I'm missing and decides to beat me up for skipping out on missions when we're short on forces. This made them sober up a bit. They stopped laughing, at least. If you really are a shinobi, even a weird one, it's true you need to get back there. Konoha needs all hands on deck right now, Kito said seriously. That's what I'm saying. Naruto nodded vigorously. So, can you help me out? You just take this road south, the old guy said, pointing down the road. It's about half a day's travel from here. Well, probably less than that for a shinobi. I still find it hard to believe you are one, but if you weren't, I guess you wouldn't be fool enough to try to go to Konoha and pass for one. Where's your Hitite? Shinji said suddenly, glaring at Naruto. And all your ninja gear? And how did you end up here and not even know where Konoha is? Naruto grumbled and rubbed his head. I dunno. I just woke up a little way into the woods there. I don't remember how I got here, so I'm hoping someone at home can figure out what happened. Are you alright to go on your own? Kito was looking doubtful, too. It's fine. It's fine, Naruto insisted, nodding more. But, he looked down at his feet. I need some shoes. I don't have any money on me, but I'll pay you back as soon as I get a chance if you'll let me borrow some. They agreed, and even though Shinji protested, they let Naruto take a pair of his shoes. They were simple straw tabi, not nearly as good as his ninja sandals, but better than nothing. The boy's father also insisted that he take a small pack of onigiri with him. Naruto thanked them and promised repayment repeatedly. Will he really be alright, I wonder? Kito mused as they watched the boy take the road toward Konoha. Naruto munched on an onigiri, walking at a slower pace to eat, now that he was starting to recognize the surrounding area. He knew that he really wasn't far from Konoha at all. His chakra was restoring itself very quickly, and the food helped. He found that he could climb up a tree if he went slowly and concentrated. He had already used that to confirm his location a couple of times. The tension he felt waking up had evaporated, but he was still confused. So far, nothing horrible had happened to him, and no one had confronted him. The road was quiet. Naruto didn't know that Konoha had resorted to discouraging visitors. It probably reduced the chances of Orochimaru or the Akatsuki slipping in again, but how were they accepting missions if no one was allowed in? Naruto shrugged mentally and licked his fingers when all the onigiri was gone. Hopefully, no one had noticed he was missing yet. Team 7 would probably assume he was out training if they had nothing to do, but if they were called to do a mission, he might be in big trouble. Naruto winced. How was he supposed to explain what happened, when he had no idea himself? A sudden loud bark and deep throaty growl made him jump. Dropping into a battle-ready position in an instant, Naruto looked around quickly. The dense foliage on either side of the road made it difficult to see very far. He soon saw it, though. A huge white beast came stalking out of the bushes, head lowered menacingly. It was an enormous dog. Naruto stood very still and tried to figure out what to do. Distract it, and then run away? He might have enough chakra control for a few Kage Bunshin. The dog came closer and sniffed at him. Suddenly it perked up its head, tongue lolling out of its mouth happily. It barked twice with a decidedly different tone than before and bounded up to Naruto, nosing at his face in greeting. Good dog, Naruto said, and the beast wagged its tail furiously. If it's just Naruto, then why did you run off so fast? You made it sound like there was an intruder or something. A familiar voice grumbled, and Naruto let out a breath he'd been holding when he saw Kiba emerge from the bushes behind the dog. Sorry, man. We were on perimeter duty and Akamaru heard you coming. We didn't smell you at first, so I think it threw him off a little bit. He walked closer and looked at Naruto suspiciously, then sniffed. He pondered for a moment, then shrugged, apparently satisfied, and jumped onto the giant dog's back. Naruto said. Are you saying that is Akamaru? Kiba frowned. Well, of course he is, duh. But he's huge, Naruto wailed, and Akamaru whined through his nose. Seriously, why do you always go on about that? Kiba crossed his arms and scowled. I haven't noticed any difference. You exaggerate too much. Naruto spluttered, wanting to protest and not knowing how, but Kiba ignored him. He and Akamaru turned to face down the path where Naruto was headed. I guess you're going back to the village? We'll go too, since it's time for us to change shifts anyway. Our team's been on perimeter duty since early on. He didn't wait for an answer, and the alleged Akamaru broke into a light run. Wait! Naruto jogged to keep up with them. Perimeter duty? Yeah, we've been put on that for now, since we're all good tracker types and all. Kiba yawned. I wish we didn't have to start so early though. Damn! I need a nap. My mom dragged me out of bed before I was even awake. Why are you coming back to the village so soon anyway? I thought you had that S-rank mission with Guy-sensei and those other old guys. Eh? S-rank? With huge eyebrows sensei? Since when did he get S-rank missions? Ones that he couldn't remember receiving, at that. Why are you asking me? You're the one that told me about it this morning. Kiba snapped, glancing over at him irritably. His gaze stayed a little longer this time though, as if he suddenly noticed something. Naruto, did you change your clothes since this morning? You look different. Naruto laughed confusedly. He wondered if he really did leave on a mission that morning and ended up in some kind of enemy trap that caused him to have a memory lapse. Or maybe it just messed up his brain so that nothing made sense. Then again, he eyed the huge Akamaru and looked at Kiba, realizing the other boy looked a little off, too. He sort of seemed taller and more built, though it was hard to tell next to the huge Akamaru. Or maybe Naruto just wasn't used to seeing Kiba without his trademark hoodie on. For some reason, instead, he was wearing a tough-looking leather jacket that made him seem older, Naruto decided. Maybe this was the sign of genjutsu weirdness he'd been looking out for? Naruto tensed and glanced all around them as they ran. If someone was about to attack, he wished they'd get it over with already. All this tension and strangeness was getting on his nerves. He wasn't good at dealing with it. They emerged on a hill Naruto was familiar with, one that overlooked the village. I'm gonna go around since I have to go report at the main gate, Kiba said. See you later, I guess. Naruto didn't answer. More specifically, he couldn't answer, because his voice stopped working. He stared down at his supposed home with wide eyes, and knew this could not be reality. The settlement he saw down below was only a little bigger than Shinji's village, and made of similar wooden structures. But it was nestled in a space much too big for it. Naruto would have denied to the end of his breath that it was Konoha, except that he easily recognized the village wall and gate, like his home had been gutted from the inside of its shell and hollowed out. And at the back of it, there was the iconic Hokage monument, displaying 5 faces. 5 faces, even though the 5th Hokage had only been inaugurated yesterday. Konoha was simply gone. There was a gaping hole in the ground where his village used to be, and that was terrifying even if there was no way it was real. A cold numbness weighed down his limbs and completely jammed his thoughts. Are you okay? He heard Kiba say distantly. Akamaru barked. Naruto barely caught movement out of the corner of his eye before the feeling in his body suddenly returned, at the point where he felt a sharp pressure prick his throat. A kunai. Hey! Kiba cried. What are you? If you're going to impersonate someone, you should research it a little better. Naruto heard a chilly voice from behind him. Your disguise is out of date. Naruto turned his head a little to the left, away from the edge of the knife. Kakashi-sensei? The man behind him tensed when he spoke. Kiba interjected loudly. What's going on? Naruto was going to ask the same thing, but when he turned his head more, he caught sight of an angry red Sharingan, which swirled and pulled him into the blackness. Kai! Naruto opened his eyes and gasped as if emerging from deep water. The first thing he noticed was that he was bound tightly to a chair, ropes tied to his ankles, wrists, and around his chest. He was sitting in a dim wooden room. It was dingier than what he remembered of the Hokage's office, but that was unmistakably where he was. The desk in front of him had a banner with the kanji for Hokage draped over it, and the Hokage herself was sitting behind it, arms crossed and looking at him with a great deal less warmth than he was used to seeing in her eyes. Marino Ibiki was standing behind her at a respectful distance, but still looked very imposing. "Whatever it was, I didn't do it!" Naruto wailed, noticing Ibiki's presence. "Please don't torture me!" "Tsunade-sama." Kiba started, and Naruto looked to see both he and Kakashi there standing a little bit behind him. "I don't understand what's going on. What's got you and Kakashi-sensei so worked up?" "It's just Naruto. Naruto left the village on a mission this morning," Kakashi said in a steely voice that sent a shiver down Naruto's spine. "Besides, can't you tell that this guy isn't our Naruto? He looks years younger, as if the enemy was working off old data to try and impersonate him." Kiba scratched his face. "Does he? But he smells like Naruto." Tsunade leaned forward to rest her chin on her hands, eyes narrowed at Naruto. "If you put aside the fact that it is an outdated imitation, it is a perfect one, which apparently works even while the user is unconscious. It's strange that an enemy could do such a complete transformation, but make such a basic mistake as getting the age wrong. Akatsuki has created perfect copies in the past, using human sacrifices." Ibiki spoke up, stepping a little closer. "Though the user of that technique has been neutralized now, they showed it was possible. And we can't forget that Orochimaru also had considerable expertise in ninjutsu transformations, as well as actual physical alterations. With Yakushi Kabuto still at large, it's possible." "I agree, but the question is, why would they go through the trouble for a disguise that would be seen through right away?" Kakashi said. "And if they were going to send a spy, they wouldn't send one that could be taken out by a simple genjutsu." Naruto was a little irked by that comment, but he was too confused and afraid to really feel angry about the potential slight at the moment. "Look, I don't know what's going on either, but I really am me. Come on, Bachan, Kakashi-sensei." Kakashi sighed and rubbed his head. "There is another possibility, that it is Naruto." Naruto perked up at that, turning his head sharply to give his sensei a hopeful look. That he found out the true purpose of his mission, and is pulling some kind of distraction scheme in order to escape. Tsunade pinched the bridge of her nose. "No," she grumbled. "I would rather it be an enemy nin." Kakashi thwacked him hard on top of the head with his fist, causing Naruto to screech indignantly. "Oh! What the hell was that for?" "Well, we know this one isn't a Kage Bunshin, at least," Kakashi said cheerfully. "We'll know for sure once we get a reply back from Guy." Tsunade sighed. "If Naruto is still with them, they are supposed to confirm that it's really him." Naruto squirmed in his bonds. You guys keep talking about some mission with huge eyebrows, sensei. As for me, I don't even remember getting a mission like that, so I think I'm probably having a really weird dream right now, or else I'm in some kind of genjutsu. First off, I know for a fact Orochimaru's attack didn't destroy the entire village." "Orochimaru?" Tsunade raised an eyebrow. "What are you talking about?" "Pain of the Akatsuki destroyed the village. That's common knowledge all over the world by now," Ibiki noted. "Unless their intention is to divert, I don't see how this can possibly be an enemy spy." "Akatsuki?" Naruto gasped. "Those black-cloaked bastards that put Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei in the hospital?" He felt a hand on his shoulder and looked up to see Kakashi looking at him very seriously. "Naruto," he said slowly, "what is the last thing you remember?" Panic seized him. Did he have amnesia or something, and that was why nothing made sense? Tsunade Bachan was inaugurated as the Godame, and you and Sasuke were released from the hospital. Naruto looked up at Kakashi's face, trying to glean some meaning from his impassive expression. "After that, Ero-sennin told me he was going to leave for a while to gather some information. Then I went home and went to sleep. And when I woke up, I was in a village a little outside of here." Tsunade stood up, hair concealing her eyes. Naruto gulped as she walked around her desk and toward him. She reached out a hand and he flinched, but she only pulled at the string hanging around his neck, pulling it from under his shirt and revealing the slightly luminous green stone attached to it. "You gave me this, yeah? Don't hit me," Naruto said instinctively. She held the stone between her thumb and index finger, squeezing it slightly and frowning, as if listening to it. "This was destroyed in the fight against pain," she murmured. "No one should be able to replicate this chakra crystal." "Bachan, hey!" Naruto said as she let go of the necklace and pulled his shirt up to where the ropes were tied around his chest. Shut up and focus your chakra, she demanded. Mold it as if you were going to do a jutsu. Muttering curses, Naruto did as he was told, and all the adults present craned to see the seal appear on Naruto's stomach. That's exactly how it looked before Sensei redid the seal, when it nearly. Kakashi gave a sharp intake of breath. Okay, is someone going to explain to me what the hell is going on? Naruto said. Seriously. I don't get this. Kiba agreed, and Akamaru whined. Is it Naruto or not? Ibiki! Tsunade said sharply, turning to the man. Relate all of this to Shizen. I am going to send a small A and B unit to scout each of the nearby villages for any recent Akatsuki sightings. First will be the village he arrived in. Where was it, Naruto? It wasn't one that I knew, Naruto said. I think it was about half a day north of here, but Shizen will bring in the readiest available combat squad for briefing and they'll be sent right away. The rest will be organized into smaller scouting units and scattered out. You will be in charge of anything that they find. Try to contact Enko's team for any updates on the enemy's movements. Normally they would tell us right away if anything happened, but if the enemy got to them first. Understood. Ibiki bowed and then vanished. Something like this happens right after Kabuto and the remnants of Akatsuki join forces. Who's to say the two are even acting separately anymore? Damn it, how can this be possible? Tsunade stalked back and forth like a restless lioness, biting her thumbnail. They had immortals among their group. Kakashi said in a low voice. There is no way of knowing the extent of what they are capable of, and if their goal is to capture Naruto, it makes sense they would go after a less experienced, more vulnerable version, if they had a way of doing that. If that's the case, then why not get him as a young child, or even infant? Tsunade said, just as quietly and intensely. I don't know, Kakashi admitted. Maybe they can only detect hosts if they've already made contact with the Bijuu's power, and Naruto didn't until after he became a ninja. Why? Naruto said loudly. Eek. He squealed as Tsunade shot a dark glare at him. No matter what, you always cause us trouble, don't you? She growled. Suddenly her face softened and the corners of her lips even tilted up a little. I forgot how cute you were at this age. She ruffled his hair. Look at those puppy dog eyes, Kakashi. No wonder I couldn't resist coming back. Bachan, Naruto said, half questioning, half embarrassed. Naruto. Tsunade inclined her head toward Kakashi, who nodded and began untying Naruto's ropes. We're going to take your word for it for now and trust you a little, but you need to listen to us in return, alright? Sure, Naruto said cautiously. Does that mean you're gonna tell me what's going on? We don't really know what's going on, but yes. Kakashi finished untying and patted Naruto on the head. Naruto scowled. You can go, Kiba, Tsunade said. But don't tell anyone about this for right now. If I'm not mistaken, you're supposed to be changing patrol shifts, aren't you? Kiba winced. Yes, Tsunade-sama. Come on, Akamaru. Akamaru yipped briefly and followed his master out. That was really weird. Since when did Kiba have responsibilities and actually listen to orders without complaint? Naruto's unease increased further. Kakashi noticed him watching Kiba leave with confusion and coughed. You're both way too thick-headed sometimes. Notice any differences with Kiba and Naruto? Akamaru got really huge all of a sudden. But Kiba acted like it was just my imagination. Naruto scratched his head. You know, Kakashi said mock-conspiratorially behind his hand at Tsunade. I guess I never noticed since it was so gradual and slight, but I think he did get smarter over the years. Aw, Mao! Naruto shrilled, pulling at his hair in frustration. And a few decibels quieter, too. Just a few. Tsunade smiled, crossing her arms. You're doing this on purpose, Naruto accused, pointing at Tsunade and Kakashi. First acting all scary like you're about to drag me in to be tortured, then making fun of me and talking in riddles. Calm down, Naruto. Kakashi sighed, placing a hand on his shoulder. We couldn't help ourselves. Seeing you like this really is nostalgic. But the truth is, we're worried. His grip tightened. It seems that someone brought you here through time. What I mean to say is, you're in the future. Eh? Naruto said blankly. Chapter 3 Future. Tsunade and Kakashi stared at him. Neither of them said anything. What do you mean, future? Naruto asked, looking back and forth between the two adults. What do you think? Kakashi asked, but he was asking Tsunade. It doesn't seem like he wants to go along with my crazy idea. Either this guy is really good, or we're dealing with the real thing. We can figure that out later, Tsunade said. Right now, whatever we believe, it comes down to the same thing. Whether it is really Naruto or an exceptionally good fake, we have to assume that Madara or Kabuto is involved. We don't know anyone else that would have the power and motivation to do either. I believe he's real, Kakashi said. It would be pointless for them to make a fake like this. It would make much more sense to switch him with an appropriately aged replacement, en route to the Lightning Country. Then again, I can see why they'd pull a younger and less powerful version forward. Don't joke like that, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto said, smiling shakily. That's impossible. You're still messing with me, aren't you? Naruto, how else do you explain the village being destroyed? Kakashi asked softly. You said yourself the last thing you remember is right after Orochimaru's attack, and it wasn't nearly as bad as this. Yeah, but… Naruto threw his arms out, eyes wide. How? How could that be? As I was saying, the only ones with the power and motivation for this are Akatsuki. Tsunade frowned. Right now we're going to assume it was their doing. You are aware at this age that they are hunting for you, right? She tapped her chin, trying to remember. Yes, Naruto said slowly. Uchiha Itachi and a weird fish-looking guy tried to kidnap me when we were out trying to find you, Bachan, and Sasuke showed up, but neither of us were any match. If Ero-sennin hadn't rescued us… He lowered his gaze. Ero-sennin said that they were after the Kyuubi. Even though he had come to accept his burden, he still didn't like saying it out loud. Tsunade put a hand on her hip. If you understand that much, you'll understand what is going on now, at least the basics. Shortly after that time, Akatsuki seemed to quiet down and leave us alone for a while. We aren't entirely sure why, except that you did travel with Jiraiya for a long time, and that probably had some influence. But recently, they have been going after you actively again. She bit her lip, worry clear on her face. That is why they may have brought you here, to double their chance of catching you. But that is just a wild guess. We can't actually say until we know more. They're still after me. Wait, is that why they destroyed the village? Naruto croaked. To get to me? Tsunade hesitated, then nodded. Please don't start blaming yourself for that now, Kakashi said, knowingly but a little exasperatedly. The you in this timeline has already done that enough. But how am I still alive after that? From what I saw, it looked like someone dropped a huge bomb on this place. When did they invade? How many people died? He buried his face in his hands. I didn't think all that out there was my fault. Fortunately, you weren't in the village at the time, Tsunade said. Naruto, she added gently, stooping down in front of his chair to look him in the face. Because of you, the village wasn't wiped out entirely. What else would you call that, idiot? Tsunade cut him off. A village is more than a few buildings. A few years ago, we didn't fully understand how powerful Akatsuki was. What happened here wasn't an invasion. All of the destruction was done by a single shinobi. And you were the one who confronted him and made him back down. He had godlike powers of destruction and revival. He killed half the village and then turned around and sacrificed his own life to bring them all back. All because of you. Naruto stared at her, eyes wide. But wait, am I really that strong? The villagers I met this morning were saying the same thing. You didn't defeat him with your fists, Kakashi said. Naruto turned to look at him, and he smiled. Though you didn't do half bad with those either. He opened his eye and looked very serious. I was one of the ones he had to bring back. You saved my life. Wait. Naruto stared at him, trembling. You mean you died, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi waved a hand. That is all in the past now, for me at least, so don't worry about it. He was cut off as Naruto, now freed from the ropes, tackled him. Stupid sensei. How can you say that like it doesn't matter? And why did you do something stupid and get killed in the first place? It was bad enough when you got put into a coma. Kakashi shuddered and gently pried Naruto off of him. Trust me, Naruto, that time was way worse. I'd take death over that kind of torture again any day. Besides, it worked out. Nah, I'm still here. I think that's enough for now, Kakashi. Tsunade warned. It's probably not a good idea to tell him too much, especially not until we understand what this is. If he's really from the past, it could alter things. Besides, I get the feeling there are quite a few things about the future that he would not like to hear. Like what? Naruto said immediately, glancing at her. Hokage-sama is right. Kakashi rested his hand on Naruto's head. Right now we need to figure out what we are going to do with you. Honestly, it's lucky you managed to make it back to the village before Akatsuki or whoever did this found you. Lucky, or it could be intentional. Tsunade considered. We can't let our guard down. She sighed heavily. Great. Now we have 2 Narutos to hide instead of 1. Just when I thought this job couldn't get any harder. Hopefully this one will be a little more apt to listen to us, since he at least realizes he can't take on Akatsuki by himself. Kakashi said, poking Naruto's forehead. Naruto scowled and rubbed his forehead. Quit messing with me! Since when have you been all touchy-feely? Last time I saw you, you were like, good luck doing the next mission on your own, and all that. Sorry. Kakashi held up his hands pacifyingly. You're just like a cute younger brother version of the Naruto that we know now, so it's difficult. I bet Tsunade-sama's just dying to pinch your cheeks. Naruto glanced suspiciously at her again, and she looked away, either confirming nor denying it. Ahem. Tsunade coughed. I'm sorry, Naruto, but since we aren't sure whether or not this is an enemy trap, you're going to have to stick with Kakashi and stay out of sight for a while. You do understand that, right? She leveled her amber eyes at him. The only way we can remain convinced you aren't an enemy is to have your cooperation. Naruto was thrown by how serious she sounded suddenly. I understand. He'll have to stay in the village until we figure out something else. There's too much going on with the cleanup and preparations, Tsunade said in a clipped voice to Kakashi. For now, we need to keep this to ourselves, even within the village. The less chance the enemy has of knowing where he is, the better. If it does turn out to be true, though, she frowned, we'll have no choice but to tell the other Kage at least. They wouldn't appreciate me hiding Akatsuki's movements after agreeing to share, but we have some leeway until we know exactly what is going on. The other Kage? Naruto said, puzzled. You mean the Kage of other hidden villages? But why? Enough, Tsunade said. She bent down in front of Naruto again and did a series of hand seals before poking him in the forehead, eliciting a small half-growl from him. Get over it. I've placed one of my specialty henge on you, so it should work until I choose to take it off of you, or if your chakra can't maintain it. Considering your ridiculous reserves even at this age, I don't think that will be a problem. Naruto felt his face. What did you do? Tsunade pulled out a compact mirror from her sleeve and handed it to him. I made you look like a generic genin for the moment. It's not a permanent solution, but it'll suffice for moving you right now. Naruto peered at himself in the mirror. Generic was right. He had plain brown eyes and hair, longish hair that was tied back, and a hetae draped around his neck. He wore a dark green square-neck tunic that closed with 2 ties on his right side, with standard pants and sandals. Not even a speck of orange anywhere. Where am I going? He muttered unhappily. Tsunade straightened up and put the mirror back in her sleeve. In the long run, I'm not sure. But for right now, Kakashi will take you to your room, since it's vacant as of this morning. You may have noticed that our housing is limited right now. And Kakashi is next door to you. Many ninja unaffiliated with any of the major clans have been put in boarding houses. Kakashi explained when Naruto looked at him in surprise. Construction is moving along very quickly though, so we won't be in this awkward situation forever. I'm counting on you, Kakashi. Naruto. Tsunade added, and Naruto looked at her. I promise I won't forget about you being there, so try to stay put and out of sight, please. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. I'll try, but you know, Bachan, when I get into trouble, I don't usually mean to do it. Tsunade's eyes flashed dangerously. Well, this time, try harder than usual. Kakashi. She commanded, and Kakashi nodded. Time to go, he said. He pulled out an unfamiliar, green-covered Ika volume and slouched casually toward the door. Naruto paced after him until he caught up. You're still obsessed with those perverted books, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto couldn't stop himself from looking all around as they walked through the village, but he tried to keep the agitation off of his face and act natural. If he didn't know better, he'd think he'd gone back in time, not forward. He doubted the village had looked like this since the very earliest days of the Shodai Hokage. It hurt to know what lay in store for his beloved home, and what was worse, all because of him. Or rather, the thing he had inside him. It was the complete opposite of what he wanted, of the rosy dreams he had just the previous day. How could he, the him of the future, have allowed things to stray so far from that? They emerged out on a wide dirt thoroughfare that seemed to go right through the center of the rebuilt settlement. Naruto's eyes darted back and forth, apprehensive but curious. What assured him the village's destruction hadn't come with massive casualties was that there were people everywhere. The street was busy as a hive. He could tell it had been long enough since the attack for the initial shock to wear off for the villagers. When he looked around, he saw everyone at work and generally happy, with shinobi and civilians and outside contractors working side by side. As Kakashi said, things seemed to be moving along swiftly and efficiently. It reminded Naruto very much of the reality that he had just left, except on a much grander scale. It was baffling, and the sense of pride he had felt before in Konoha's strength came back to him as he looked all around, even though it was muted somewhat by the disbelief and anger that someone would do this. "Where is everyone staying?" Naruto asked. "There's no way there are enough houses yet for this many people, right?" Kakashi said, not looking up from his book. "Most of the contracted workers are living in tents, and the clans have to tough it with all their people in a single building until they can recover their old grounds. Shinobi families with underage children and many civilians are still living in the evacuation shelter in the mountain. Most other active shinobi, like us, are out here in housing blocks grouped according to unit. Teams are in the same place whenever possible so they can react quickly if necessary. It's convenience over comfort for everybody," he explained. Oh. Naruto knew one thing. If he ever made it back to his own time, this would never happen. Even if he had to leave the village, he could go into hiding somewhere. Or, try to go find Akatsuki. Maybe he'd be able to put at least a scratch on them. Even if they killed him, at least they wouldn't be hunting him down and destroying the village in the process. He vowed right then to use any means necessary to find out the details and go back to stop this from happening. Naruto clutched at the front of his tunic, over where the seal was hidden, concealed by the henge. Kakashi looked down at him from the corner of his eye but did not comment. "Here we are," he said lightly. They had arrived at a row of identical white houses with green-tiled roofs and wood trimming. He entered one through a plain-looking wooden door and Naruto followed. To the left was a room filled with low tables, where just a few shinobi were lounging. Naruto supposed most were out working this time of the day. They mounted a narrow wooden staircase. A friend of mine made this particular block of houses. It was one of the first, Kakashi said. You know him too in this time. He left with the future you, guy, and some others this morning. Naruto didn't answer. He was still preoccupied by what he'd seen. Kakashi said. I wonder if the timing is a coincidence. The whole purpose of sending you to the land of lightning, after all, was to make it so Akatsuki couldn't find you. Maybe, instead of looking for you, someone made you come to them. Naruto looked up sharply as they stepped out onto the second floor. You think they already know I'm here? Kakashi shrugged. You said you landed outside of here, but unless whoever brought you made a mistake, they had to know you'd try to get to Konoha as soon as possible. But then... Naruto clutched at the front of his tunic again. Why am I still here? The village will be in danger again, that's why you're disguised. Kakashi poked him in the forehead again. And I can't say you'll be able to stay here indefinitely, but... He rested his hand on a doorknob and turned to look at Naruto seriously. I think you're misunderstanding something. We didn't send you off because we were worried about the village's safety. After all, there isn't much of it left right now, and our enemy doesn't care about a beat-up ruin. You were sent away to protect you. To protect me? Kakashi motioned into the room and Naruto walked in front of him. How do I put this? It's less along the lines of if you're here, Akatsuki will come here, and more along the lines of, if you are here, it will be easier for Akatsuki to find you. Huh! What's the difference? Perspective, Kakashi said enigmatically, and Naruto scrunched up his face uncomprehendingly. A lot has changed since you were just a cute little 12-year-old genin. Naruto looked around his room slowly, almost surreptitiously, remembering suddenly that his other, older self had lived in there up until that morning. It was a very creepy feeling, yet strangely comforting at the same time. The room was extremely basic and mostly bare, but there were one or two items he recognized. The room had all that was left from his home after the destruction of the village. There was an unfamiliar trunk, a futon folded up neatly beside it, and a duvet folded on top of that, yellow with white spirals all over it. He walked over to a small wooden bookshelf by the window, he was pretty sure he recognized, and slow smile came over his face as he picked up the picture frame sitting there. It was a familiar photo of Team 7. So then, how old am I now? He set the frame down and turned to Kakashi excitedly. How much time has it been? I'm strong, right? He clenched his fists and gave a face-splitting grin, savoring the thought. I'd bet I have some incredible jutsu by now. Hee. Hey, Kakashi-sensei. You will be 17 in October, Kakashi said calmly, keeping his nose buried in his book. And I'd say you get by. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto managed to bring some of his natural whine into the neutral voice he'd adopted along with the henge. Show me a jutsu I can do in this time. I know you've probably copied them all. Come on. Kakashi murmured vaguely. Obviously, I'm not Hokage yet, but… Naruto rubbed his chin thoughtfully. If I can take on someone from Akatsuki, I at least have to be a jounin by now. Kakashi snickered. What? Naruto huffed. Come on, it can't hurt to tell me something like that. Or, what about Sasuke and Sakura-chan? And everyone else? Oh, wait. Naruto held up his hands in a halting gesture, not noticing how Kakashi's posture stiffened slightly. Did I pass the Chunin exams the first time? Or at least before Kiba did? Man, if I'd known, I would have asked him. Oh, he'd be so mad. No, wait. Naruto grasped at his hair in horrified realization, and Kakashi just watched him blankly. Why am I worried about rankings when the village was just attacked? Kakashi-sensei, is everyone? He turned suddenly to Kakashi, realizing that even though he had seen a lot of people out there, he hadn't seen any of his friends. Kakashi sighed and put Ika tactics back in his pocket. No significant casualties resulted from the village's destruction, he said carefully. The results would have been catastrophic, but as you heard, the attacker was an extremely powerful shinobi who was persuaded to reverse the loss of life he caused. Naruto gave a little uneasy laugh. That sounds unreal, Kakashi shrugged. It was. But that's the kind of enemy Akatsuki is. There aren't many of them left now, but the ones that remain are just as unbelievable as that one. The ones really pulling the strings always hide until last. Naruto sighed in relief. But everyone made it through the attack. At least I wasn't responsible for my friends getting hurt. Yes, that's true, but… Kakashi frowned. He rubbed the back of his neck uncomfortably. I sort of agree with Tsunade-sama. We should be careful about what you know. But it's inevitable the longer you are here, the more you'll be able to piece together whether we want you to or not. Some of those things, well… situations haven't always turned out as nicely as this one did, Naruto. Naruto lowered his gaze. I know. You do? Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Naruto closed his eyes and nodded. I've seen enough of our world to know that bad, senseless things happen to people who don't deserve it. People hurt one another. Bushibrao didn't deserve to have his arm and leg crushed by Gaara, and Gaara didn't deserve to be shunned by the sand, but the sand didn't deserve to be fooled by Orochimaru either. Even Zabuza and Haku didn't really deserve to die, and you know the Sandaime didn't. He opened his eyes and slowly looked up at his teacher. It scares me to think stuff like that has kept happening all the way till now, but I'm not surprised. It's why I've continued to get stronger, in order to protect what I can, right? This time, I even managed to prevent anyone dying. He grinned suddenly. Whatever else happened, I guess I didn't grow up too badly. Kakashi stared blankly at him for a long time. Then, with a soft chuckle, he stepped forward and placed a hand on top of Naruto's head. What do you know? Maybe we should have all given you a little more credit a long time ago. Eh? Naruto swatted the hand and ducked, glaring at Kakashi suspiciously. Anyway, I need to go see if Guy has responded yet. We can't have a basic grasp on this situation until we confirm whether the you of this time is still around, or if something happened to him. Can't I? You stay here, Kakashi said firmly, holding up his hand as Naruto stepped forward. I didn't bring you here just to turn around and take you back. The less you see right now, the better, at least until it's allowed. I will tell you what we find out, unless there's a really good reason for me not to, in which case I will at least tell you that I can't tell you. He smiled cheekily. Naruto grumbled and plopped down on the floor in front of a low wooden table. What am I supposed to do then? Kakashi sighed. It would be difficult for anyone to stay inside knowing they've arrived in their own future, but just try to bear with it until I find out something. If you get hungry, I'm sure you can find some ramen stashed around here somewhere. Other than that, just find a way to quietly amuse yourself. Ah. He suddenly appeared crouched on top of the table, holding up Ika Tactics in Naruto's face. Here. You wouldn't have read this one yet. No thanks, Naruto said resoundingly, crossing his arms. I don't read garbage. Still has no taste. Suit yourself, Kakashi said lightly before stepping out into the hall. Later. Be good now. He raised a hand in a lazy wave before closing the door behind him. Naruto groaned and flopped practically face first down on the table. He sat that way for several minutes, chin propped on the table and staring blankly at the wall. Now that he was listening, he could hear indistinct voices from somewhere below, and the sounds of distant hammering and sawing coming from out in the street. Just sit around? You try sitting still in a situation like this, jerk. Naruto muttered, but with no real vehemence. He'd rarely felt so far out of his depth before. The last time had been when Akatsuki had come for him. He suppressed a shudder as remembered opening the door to Uchiha Itachi, looking down at him like an ant with his murderous red eyes as if he could rip all the limbs from his body just by looking at him. He probably could have. Pull it together, Naruto commanded himself, sitting up with a forceful shake of his head. This wasn't the time to be afraid. He needed to take this chance to learn as much as he could, whether anyone was going to help him or not. Naruto went to the window and looked out at the street and the very open skyline, previously dominated by the sprawling, cheerful buildings he was used to in the past. The enemy had the power to do this. One shinobi alone. He'd heard of people that strong before. It was pretty much a given that all the Hokage, and the Kage of other lands as well, he supposed, could take on whole armies or defend the hidden villages by themselves. The Shodai Hokage was known for the power to change the face of the landscape itself when he fought. And Naruto had been exposed personally to touches and glimpses of the capabilities of ridiculously powerful ninja, like the Sannin and the Sandaime Hokage, and his brief encounter with Akatsuki. For him to face someone like that by himself, like everyone said, maybe not on completely equal terms, but still, to survive and even win? He was plenty confident in himself, but it was hard to wrap his head around it. As messed up as some things were, that part was pretty damn awesome. Naruto peered curiously around at his room again. There was nothing in it to suggest that its occupant had the power to go toe-to-toe with an S-rank missing nin. There wasn't much of anything in it at all. Just 4 plain wooden walls, and a small alcove with a sink. The toilets and bathing areas were probably communal. Naruto got up from the table and crouched curiously in front of the bookshelf, probably the only scrap of personality the room had. He definitely recognized it as a piece from his old room, as it was carved with various boredom-induced doodles and lines. He tried to imagine what it would be like to pick through the ruins of his home to find anything salvageable. Did it hurt? It was impossible to guess his future self's mindset at that point. It wasn't like he cared overmuch for his crappy apartment, and the fact that everyone was alive would mean a lot more. But still, everything he'd known was destroyed. He ran a finger over the few books that the little bookcase held, looking for clues. He wondered if it could be considered snooping if it was all technically his stuff. To his dismay, he found several volumes of Ika, including the one Kakashi had shown him, Tactics. Looking closer, he saw that their spines looked new and unscuffed, and their pages were crisp and stiff. It didn't look like these particular copies had ever been read, at least. Naruto's hand landed on a small brown paper-covered book that looked much more worn out than the others. He curiously pulled it out to look at the cover. The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi. Now that sounded like the kind of story he could like, and judging by its well-worn edges he did. Standing, Naruto laid it down by Team 7's picture for later and turned to the wooden trunk. "Excuse me," he mumbled as he opened the trunk, still undecided about whether this could be considered snooping. He was delighted to find several stacks of his favorite instant ramen on the left side, and clothes folded up on the right. Whoa! Naruto held up a mesh armor shirt that was several sizes too big for him. Below that were a few t-shirts. Below that he found a pair of standard black ninja pants, and he hopped up excitedly to hold them up to his waist. The hems trailed over his feet and he snickered gleefully, holding them at arm's length again to try to calculate how much height age would bestow upon him. A polite knock came on the door and Naruto scrambled, nearly got tangled on his own feet while trying to stuff everything back in the trunk, realized that was stupid, finally was able to stand and not fall, then stood very still. His heart was thumping very fast. "Naruto, are you there?" A soft, neutral male voice came from behind the door. Chapter 4: Finding. Naruto stood very still and listened. But whoever was out there didn't say anything else. What to do? The smartest thing would be not to answer and wait for the person to go away. But he was transformed and no one would be able to tell it was him, so what would be the harm in seeing who was at the door? It was obviously someone who knew him, and that made Naruto curious. I heard you in there. The calm voice came again. Are you hiding from Sakura for some reason? Should I pretend that I did not hear you? If yes, knock once. An expectant silence followed. Oh, right. If no, let me in. Another silence followed. Naruto's eye twitched. How was he supposed to ignore that? Besides, they already knew he was there, so it would be better to let the person in than to raise suspicions. Yes. Squashing his doubts, Naruto walked over to the door and opened it. The visitor was an older teen boy with jet black hair and eyes, and unnaturally pale skin. He wore a purple long-sleeved button-up shirt, with matching purple pants and black sandals. He was carrying a spiral notebook. Naruto could not see a headband, so he couldn't tell if the boy was a shinobi or not. The only thing he was absolutely certain of was that he had never seen this person in his life. If the boy was surprised or embarrassed to find he'd been talking to the wrong person, he didn't show it. He just looked down at Naruto with his head tilted slightly to the side. Oh, excuse me, he said mildly. I thought this was my teammate's room. Teammate? Naruto echoed. Yes. Uzumaki Naruto of Team Kakashi, under the command of Hatake Kakashi. I was under the impression these were his living quarters. The boy's voice never seemed to vary in tone, but kept the same light, vaguely pleasant intonation throughout. It wasn't a monotone, exactly, but it was the same type of artificial lightness one found in instructional videos and public announcements. It was unsettling. He left on a mission earlier this morning, Naruto said, trying to act normal. The Hokage is letting me stay here temporarily while some more apartments are being built. He smiled resolutely through feebleness of his own excuse, but the other boy seemed to accept it. I suppose that makes us neighbors then, if only temporarily. My name is Sai, he said with a weird smile that didn't look right on his face. He held out a hand. It's nice to meet you. He paused, looking at Naruto very intently. Crap, I haven't thought up a fake name or anything. Naruto thought frantically. Now he's waiting for me to say something. Stupid face, Sai said finally, and he gave his weird smile again. I hope that we can be good friends. A silence fell. If one listened closely enough, they could hear the snap of his self-control breaking. What did you call me? Naruto bared his fist. It's no more stupid than yours, with that creepy-ass smile you've got. What's your problem? Sai laughed sheepishly, which made him seem a little more human, but only made Naruto more confused. No good, huh? He glanced at Naruto and then away, scratching his cheek. Maybe Naruto and Sakura were right. I should probably stop trying to give people nicknames. Eh? Now Naruto wasn't sure whether to be angry or not. Well, whatever it was they told you, I'm sure I agree with them. Sai dipped his head. Sorry to bother you. He made as if to leave. Wait, Naruto started. Here was a person that didn't know they weren't supposed to tell him anything. If there was any way to get information out of him, Naruto wanted to try it. Yes? Sai said curiously. If you wanted to leave him a message, I could pass it on. If I see him, I mean. I don't know when he's coming back, Naruto said. It's nothing really important. I was just going to ask him about yesterday when he disappeared from the ramen shop. I'm sure Sakura knows what happened, so I'll just ask her. Where is she? Naruto asked before he could stop himself. He winced internally, hoping it wasn't too odd of a question. She's been spending the majority of her time with the medical corps lately, though she's probably doing work for Hokage-sama this time of day, Sai said. Do you know her? Not really, Naruto said cagily. I mean, I know of her, I know who she is, but she doesn't know me. Sai stared at him for a while. He may have been surprised. His eyes were just a fraction wider, though it was hard to tell, but then the corners of his lips lilted slightly. It was a much fainter but much nicer smile than before. Oh, is this what they call having a boyhood crush? I read about that in here, Sai said cheerfully, pulling a book out of his pocket, and for one horrible second Naruto thought it was Ika, but it was titled Making and Keeping Long-Term Relationships. Although, I'm not sure if she'd be interested in a puny little shrimp like you. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. This guy seemed to have a knack for saying inflammatory things in the most pleasant of voices. But at least, you're pretty brave for liking someone scary like her. Forget I said anything about it, Naruto said loudly. Already failing to keep quiet, I see, Kakashi said cheerfully, appearing behind Sai's shoulder. Did you find out something? Naruto asked instantly. Kakashi gave him his infamous dead-eye look. You do realize there's almost no chance the message has even reached them yet, right? We only sent it a couple of hours ago. How the hell was I supposed to know that? Naruto grated. I was just going by what you said. What were you doing then? Oh, nothing, Kakashi said lazily. Just got the boss to spring you from your prison cell. You're welcome. What? Really? So wait, that means I don't have to stay cooped up in here? How did you manage that? Sai shuffled to the side to get out from between Kakashi and Naruto. I'll just go. Wait. Kakashi caught his arm. I need to tell you about your new mission. Come in here for a minute. Looking bemused, Sai allowed himself to be led into the room and Kakashi shut the door behind them. The copynin settled down at the table and Sai and Naruto followed his lead. I'll make this quick, Kakashi started. Right now, I'm heading out in the second wave with my Niken to help with the scouting. In the meantime, we think that it's safe within the village's boundaries, or at least, it's no safer in this room than any other place in the village. He smiled. At any rate, we still need to be very cautious until the investigation is complete, even if there is no particular point in keeping you in here, specifically. I don't understand, Kakashi-sensei, Sai said. I'm putting you on the same protection mission I have, Kakashi said. It will only be C rank in terms of difficulty, I hope. But it's A rank or higher in terms of importance to the village, and the level of danger, if it appears. The two of you need to stick together like glue until I get back. Sai looked at Naruto, and then back at Kakashi. I'm sorry, I still do not understand. I don't think an A rank is any place for a genin, even if it is easy for the rank. He's not going on the mission with you. He is the mission. I don't need a babysitter, Naruto growled. Who is this guy anyway? He acts like he's from our class or something, but I don't remember him at all. Is he really on our team? It's a long story, Naruto. Can we just focus here? You need someone competent with you if you're going to be allowed any freedom at all. Get over it. Naruto? Sai said confusedly, staring at Naruto. Listen up. And don't interrupt me again, Squirt, Kakashi added with a pointed look at Naruto. Sai, I don't have time to go into the whys and hows. We don't know all of them anyway, so just go along with it for now. This kid is Naruto. He gestured at Naruto. Tsunade put a henge on him. The reason for that, and the reason he doesn't know who you are, is because he isn't the Naruto you know. Someone used a kind of summoning or space-time ninjutsu we don't know about, and brought him from the past into our time. He is Naruto from 4 years ago. Sai's eyes were definitely noticeably wider this time. That's... He looked at Naruto. Very bad, Kakashi supplied. They wouldn't do something like that without a reason. Fortunately, it seems they didn't have very good control over where they brought him, because he ended up close to the village and still managed to get here without being attacked. Unless that was their intention. Sai pointed out. Right. Kakashi sighed. It's risky, but I'm glad he's not out there. At least here, there are lots of other shinobi around, and he can blend in with the henge. But I need you to stay beside him while I'm gone helping with the investigation. Kakashi's eye crinkled. Tsunade-sama might be in trouble once the elders find out, but fortunately, you're a good choice for this mission. You can quickly send information or an SOS to the Hokage if necessary. I will also leave Pakken with you. I'll reverse summon him if we find anything out there. Kakashi bit his thumb and went through some seals. Kuchios no Jutsu. A pop and a puff of smoke revealed the diminutive pug sitting attentively on the table where Kakashi had slammed his hand down. Leave it to me, I'll keep an eye on them, Pakken said, saluting with a paw. Pakken, Naruto said happily. You haven't changed a bit. Pakken looked over his shoulder at Naruto. You have though. Are you really that short, or is it just a henge? I don't remember being able to stand eye to eye with you. That's... I'm sitting down, and you're on the table. Naruto jumped up to demonstrate he was still, at least, taller than a dog. Sai laughed. Naruto shot him a disgruntled look, but didn't retort. It would have been easier to react if the laugh had been distinctly mocking, but it wasn't. It was genuine and warm. No, you really haven't changed all that much, Sai said. Actually, I'm surprised I didn't figure out who you are sooner. That was certainly discomforting, coming from a complete stranger. Sai tilted his head thoughtfully. Though I wonder if at a younger age, you have even less of a okay. Kakashi cut in neatly. Another thing, Sai, is that while this isn't exactly a secret, we want to keep it quiet until a decision can be made by the Hokage and the others. That is also why you're a good fit for this. I doubt it will be necessary, but if anyone asks, he's a survivor from Root that you're mentoring. Ah. Sai gave an understanding nod, but Naruto was completely lost. That is good. It won't be necessary to explain his lack of a background then. The knowledge of most of our true identities died along with Danzasama, after all. Right. Naruto's personality doesn't exactly fit that, but it's all for the time being anyway, while the higher-ups have their meeting. Kakashi stood up. By the way, Naruto, before you go out, I have to warn you. Naruto sighed. I'll behave. And I won't run off. I just want to see things and help the village if I can. Even I can tell this isn't a good time to be pulling jokes. True, but that's not what I was going to say. Your cover might not fool everyone here. Still, you need to try to act normal, even if you see or hear something that surprises you. Can you do that? Naruto nodded cautiously. I really mean it, Kakashi said dryly. You need to stay calm no matter what, or we'll have no choice but to hide you in an underground bunker until Akatsuki goes away. And if Sai tells you to run, or stay out of a fight, you need to do that without complaining. You're making me nervous, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto said with a quavering laugh. Is it going to be that risky just to walk around a little bit? Probably not, Kakashi admitted. But never forget that capturing you is one of Akatsuki's objectives. Don't draw attention to yourself. If they attack the village again in the state we are in, there's a good chance they'll succeed in taking you. He smiled, but his words gave Naruto a chill. Okay, I get it. He mumbled. Great. We can't keep you in the dark about everything, but Sai tried to keep him out of anything that's too big to be dealing with right now. He says that he left the night of Tsunade's inauguration before. Kakashi didn't finish the sentence, but his hand gave a strange deliberate twitch, like a hand sign, only it wasn't any Naruto recognized. He barely saw it, but Sai looked very grave and nodded. Understood, he said. Be good and stay out of trouble, you three. Later. And Kakashi disappeared with a puff of smoke. Kage-bunshin, Sai said. They must have already left. Yep. Pakken raised his paw. They were ready to go as soon as Kakashi showed up. He didn't even have to give Hokage-sama his puppy dog look to convince her. They're both so soft on the brat. Feeling awkward and unsure what to do, Naruto walked over to the trunk and started putting away the clothes he'd pulled out. So, he started slowly. Why are they sending out a search right now? I mean, what are they looking for? Sai watched him impassively, head tilted slightly. It's safe to assume if someone deliberately brought you here, they would be looking for you. If that person knows where you first appeared, they are probably heading there now. If we send forces there, then maybe we can catch them. Naruto snapped the trunk closed and stood up fully to frown at Sai. What? Sai asked. I'm sorry, I really can't figure you out. Naruto scratched his head. Are we friends? In this time, I mean. We're comrades. We're comrades, but we're not friends? Naruto crossed his arms, unimpressed. Sai shifted uncomfortably. It's not that. I'm not entirely sure how the friendship thing works. If it makes you feel any better, though, I think the older you would say we are friends. I've been reading up on it. He tapped his pocket. But I've come to the conclusion that learning will take time. Oh. Naruto thought about it. See, this whole time I've been trying to figure out what kind of person I am in the future. Not that I mind having more friends, but I don't get you. Sai shrugged and laid his notebook flat on the table, smoothing the cover. Back when we first met, I thought it would be easier to interact with people if I put on an act that kept them from caring about me. So actually, you hated me. He started absently flipping through his notebook. Now that it was open, Naruto could see that it was actually a sketchpad, and he walked over to get a closer look. Sai paused on a pastel drawing that didn't look like much of anything, just a swirling mass of different colors. He tapped it with his finger and smiled. Sakura punched me really good in the face once. Naruto winced. Yeah, I know what that's like. Sai shook his head, closing the sketch pad. Do you? Anyway, after a while, I decided to drop the act and be myself. So we get along pretty well now. He offered a small smile over his shoulder. So you like to draw? Yes. It's also part of my jutsu. I can show you sometime if you want, but aren't you interested in seeing the village? Yeah. What Kakashi-sensei said freaked me out a little bit, but I want to see how things are going after the attack. I didn't see much when we were walking here. Sai nodded and stood, tucking his sketch pad under his arm. Is there anywhere in particular you want to go? If you're hungry, they just reopened Ichiraku's not long ago. Naruto's stomach growled at the thought. He didn't have to ask how Sai knew it would be a tempting offer. Strange, but it was pretty convenient to meet someone that already knew him. Now you're talking. I haven't had any lunch yet. It's good to know that Ichiraku's is still around. It wouldn't be right otherwise. Operation Learn About Konoha of the Future was about to begin. It just so happened that the ramen bar was as good a place as any to start. I love the new place. Naruto gushed as he settled in on a stool. It looks like it's been expanded. Thank goodness the menu is the same though. He added, looking over one of the signs hanging up. Oh? Thanks. Tucci looked up from his chopping to smile proudly. It's thanks to Naruto that I was able to reopen so quickly. He wouldn't rest until Yamato-san made it a priority. What can I get you? Naruto's grin was a mile wide. A large tonkatsu miso with pork cutlets, please. Oh, with some eggs too. Same for me. Sai said. Sure, Tucci said. He tapped the blunt edge of the knife against his shoulder contemplatively. Sorry, I don't remember seeing you in here before, kid. What's your name? Tucci had a sharper memory for faces than any ninja. He made it a point to keep a rapport with all of his customers. It's Shinji. Naruto mumbled out. He glanced at Sai nervously. Apologies, Tucci-san. Sai took over. He was en route. That group, huh? Tucci said with dark understanding. If it wasn't bad form to speak ill of the Hokage, even just a candidate one. He muttered and turned around to start his work. Seeing that it had been so easy to deflect suspicion at the simple mention of root piqued Naruto's curiosity. Kakashi's lazy attitude had given him doubts, but it really seemed to work. What is this root thing anyway? Naruto whispered to Sai behind his hand. Later, Sai said. After they got their ramen, Naruto ate quietly, turned halfway in his seat to watch the street through the open doors of the shop. Plenty of new questions occurred to him while he was sitting there, but he didn't want to ask while Tsuchi was working in the background. Pakken was staring at him nonchalant, and Naruto gave him a few pork cutlets from his bowl. I wonder if they found anything yet, Naruto said. Nothing worth summoning me back, anyway, Pakken said. And I don't hear the village sirens going off either, so that's a good sign. Maybe it wasn't anyone after all. Maybe it was just a freak accident. That seems unlikely, Sai said. He put some coins down on the counter. You don't have any money on you, do you? Naruto made to pat himself down, then remembered that he'd traveled to the future in his pajamas. Crap, I forgot about that. Sorry. I can pay you back if you think they'll let me pick up a few D-rank missions around the village or something? I should help work while I'm here anyway. It's no problem. Sai counted out the amount for Naruto and put it down. Then he turned and strode out. Naruto trotted after him. Would you like to visit Sakura? Sai asked suddenly. Would that be alright? I mean, I'm not gonna complain if you're suggesting it, but it should be. I'm not certain, but I believe Kakashi-sensei gave you those warnings because he knew you would want to say hello to your friends. This way. We'll check at the medical corps first. Naruto caught up to him. If you say so. I want to see how strong everyone's gotten. I can't tell you much about that, since I only joined your team this past year. I do know that Sakura couldn't have started apprenticing under Tsunade-sama until after she became Hokage, so I suppose that might be different. Sakura's apprenticed under Tsunade-bachan? Naruto said curiously. How so? She's a medic nin now, Pakken said. Our little Sakura-chan has gotten to be very reliable. That's awesome. Naruto grinned. But something confuses me, Sai. I didn't understand when you said I was your teammate, but all that with Kakashi-sensei, and just now, when you said you joined our team this year, Are you saying you're really a permanent team member? How does that work, when we've already got our Team 7? Sai was quiet for a moment. Packen looked up at him, but didn't say anything either. Team 7 as it was, a training unit under a Jounin instructor, no longer exists. Now we are Team Kakashi, which, while maintaining the structure of the original Team 7, is a regular unit that's subject to adjustments as necessary. For example, sometimes Yamato Taisha takes command of the team instead of Kakashi-sensei. Right now, Yamato Taisha is with the older Yu on the way to the Lightning Country. With those two gone, and Sakura spending most of her time working for Tsunade-sama, our team is a bit scattered at the moment. So where's Sasuke? Naruto pointed out the obvious omission. Sai laughed nervously and Packen bit him on the ankle. Oh. I don't think I should really get into what he's doing out there, but the last correspondence with him was near the Land of Iron. I believe you, Sakura, and Kakashi-sensei met with him there not long ago. He's on some kind of secret mission? Without us? Typical. Something like that. Sai studied the row of news shops across the street. I really can't say anything about it. So, why Shinji? Huh. The fake name you gave Tuchi-san. Oh. Naruto shrugged. It was just the first random name that popped in my head. It's the name of some jerk I met on the way here. Ah, that makes sense, Sai said without the slightest hint of irony. I just thought it was funny that you chose that, since it reminds me of my older brother. His name was Shin. And he was en route, just like I was. Again with the route? What is it? Later. You're doing this on purpose. Kakashi found it easy to retrace Naruto's steps back to where he appeared. He mostly stayed on the road, after all. Kakashi and his ninja hound Shiba led the way with a small group of ANBU behind them. When they arrived at the tiny farming village, they held back, hiding in the trees to observe. They already found the place where Naruto had emerged from the woods to look down on it. Kakashi's eye narrowed as he scrutinized the place from up in his tree. It just looked like a normal, peaceful little hamlet. Most of the residents had left to lend their carpentry and building skills to Konoha. Only a handful remained to tend the crops. They had suffered no collateral damage from the blast that had destroyed Konoha, so there had been no need to stage a cleanup here, nor had there been any reason to keep the Chunin who was stationed there. It was vulnerable, but not at risk. Until now. Kakashi touched the microphone on his neck. There's no one in the fields or on the street. The whole place looks like a ghost town. Proceed with caution. Boar's voice sounded in his ear. I will back you up. Raven and Tiger, stay in the trees and out of sight. It doesn't look like much is going on here, but we won't know for sure until we can make contact with some of the residents. Kakashi heard the other two give their affirmative, and he jumped down from the tree and sprinted through the grass, Shiba bounding beside him easily. He heard Boar behind him, his steps a faint whisper on the ground, surprisingly quiet for a man his size. Shiba's nose was to the ground. He sniffed along the street and paused beside one of the fields, giving it several sniffs and turns. Naruto met up with some people here, Beniken said. He trotted down the street a little more and ambled over some freshly plowed earth toward a house on the edge of the field. Looks like they went in there. He raised his head to stare at the house. It was a simple wooden structure like all the others. It couldn't have held more than 1 or 2 rooms. Kakashi could see a small tendril of smoke rising from the chimney, which meant someone was home. He strode up to the house and knocked on the front door. There was no response, but at this point he hadn't really been expecting one. Something here felt very wrong. Is there anyone in there? He mumbled to Shiba. Kakashi's own nose wasn't all that bad, and he knew what it was telling him. Still, it didn't hurt to have a second opinion. Yes, Shiba said with certainty. How many? 3. No enemies. I don't think. Kakashi opened the door and walked in cautiously. He saw that the fire in the hearth was really nothing but a collection of cinders. A pot of stew was over it, still warm. He could smell white rice and daikon and beef. And there were 3 bodies splayed on the floor. They were lined up all in the same posture, knees slightly bent and their hands tied behind their back. An old man, a young man, and a boy. It looked as if someone had lined them up on their knees and killed them one by one, leaving them slumped over wherever they fell. Bizarrely, there were no wounds. There was no blood. Poison? Kakashi bent down and sniffed at the abandoned food around the hearth. Senpai? Boar said from the doorway. Did you find something? He came further into the room and saw the bodies. Boar uttered a soft curse under his breath and tapped his radio. "We have 3 bodies. Move in and search the other houses. If you find anyone, don't move them unless they are still alive and need medical treatment. Prioritize the recovery of any survivors. We will regroup after searching the whole village." "What do you think?" he asked Kakashi. "It isn't poison," Kakashi said, standing up from his inspection of the bodies. "There's no scent of it on their mouths or food, and there are no puncture wounds from a syringe. We will need an autopsy to be sure, though. The way they are tied up suggests they were restrained and kept alive for a little while before they died. My guess is that someone interrogated them. Maybe they died from some sort of mind destruction jutsu. The enemy could have realized these people had contact with Naruto," Boar theorized, "but it doesn't seem like they were tortured for information. Why would they just kill them outright like this? If they didn't bother with asking," Kakashi said slowly. "If the method of getting the information itself was the cause of death." Boar became very still. "We have seen this before, but that's..." Kakashi drew in a very long breath. "What is going on here?" Chapter 5: Crash. The medec seemed busier than anyone else. The rebuilt hospital wasn't their only place of operation. They had multiple tents set up at different points in the village for minor care, in order to save space in the hospital for only the most serious cases. They also had a warehouse currently being stocked with supplies and organized by genin helpers. At that moment, the work there was being overseen by a single medic. "Put them all in the same place," Sakura said to a genin team that was pushing a huge wheeled cart full of wooden crates. "Tsunade-sama needs this inventory report today. Just there, and go get the next one. I'll unload these." They gratefully scampered off. "Sakura," Sai called. Sakura turned as they approached, and her face brightened. "Oh hey, Sai! Did you come to help?" "Nope, just came to say hello," Sai said cheerfully. Sakura grumbled and started unloading crates off the cart. She was taller and more sinewy than Naruto remembered. She had kept the cropped hair from the exam, tied with a red hitayate. The pink hair and striking green eyes were the same as ever, but for the first time, Naruto really felt as though time had passed. She wore tall boots with a dark navy skirt and a sleeveless red vest with a light-colored tee underneath it. She was even taller than him, than before. And there was something else there, too. An aura of confidence that he hadn't even realized until now that she had been lacking before. "So, what are you doing?" Sai said. Sakura put down another crate and straightened up, dusting off her hands. "Tsunade-sama wants an inventory of all our medicinal herbs, in order to determine if we need to go collect some more." "What are you doing? It's not nice for people on their days off to come taunt those that have to work, you know." "I am working. I've been assigned to guard this person." Sai motioned toward Naruto. Sakura shifted her attention to him for the first time, and Naruto blushed a bit as she appraised him. She looked puzzled. After all, he was still disguised. She glanced at Pakin near his feet, and then back at Naruto. "Who is this?" "It's Naruto," Sai said cheerfully. Sai. Naruto tugged on his arm. "I thought Kakashi-sensei said we were supposed to be top secret right now." "It's alright," Sai said. "Because Kakashi-sensei enlisted me for this task, this is a Team Kakashi mission now. That is why he put me on this task, and why he suggested we go out. If he doesn't say it explicitly, he can't get in trouble for it later." "In theory," Pakin added. "Naruto?" Sakura frowned, hand on her hip. "I thought you were being sent out to the land of lightning. Or was that just a decoy or something?" "Ah, he was sent out," Sai said. "But this one suddenly showed up, and we might have 2 Narutos running around now." Sakura unexpectedly narrowed her eyes at Naruto with a hard, sharp expression he never knew she could make. It wasn't the usual glare like when he did something stupid. It was the cold, professional look of a shinobi analyzing a potential threat. "I was about to take a little bit of a break," she said lightly, a tone that didn't match her expression. "Let's go catch up some." She turned on her heel and walked toward the back of the warehouse. The boys followed, Naruto apprehensive and Sai as blandly chipper as ever. They arrived in a small break room and Sakura closed the door behind them. Naruto and Sai sat down in mismatched chairs around a folding table, and Sakura poured herself a cup of coffee from the coffee pot on the counter. "All right, what is this about?" she said, settling down at the table with them. Sai explained everything to her, including about Kakashi and the ANBU's scouting mission. It didn't take long and she didn't interrupt, but by the end of it Sakura lowered her head, bangs covering her face. Naruto wondered if she was about to explode. I suppose what we do about it in the end depends on what they find. Sai finished, and whether or not the older version of Naruto is still around, or if they traded places somehow, or whatever else. Sakura looked up, but she didn't seem angry like Naruto thought. Instead she looked concerned, and she turned to Naruto, who had been mostly quiet throughout the conversation. Are you alright? She asked gently. I know all this must have come as a shock to you. I mean, with the village being destroyed and everything. It isn't exactly the future we had in mind for ourselves. Naruto tried to think of what to say. It's not as bad as I would have thought, I guess. I didn't realize what a relief it would be just to have everyone survive. Oh. He sat up very straight in his chair suddenly. I have something really important to ask you. Oh? Yesterday for me anyway, we were at the inauguration and Kiba was being a jerk and you had to hold me back from pummeling him. Do you remember that? I think so. Why? Why? Naruto slammed his hands on the table impatiently. He was talking trash about me even though I beat him in the preliminaries. I forgot and didn't ask when I saw him earlier, but please tell me I beat him to Chunin. Sakura blinked at him a couple of times and then burst out into full-blown laughter. Pakken chuckled and Sai fake smiled out of habit. Sakura-chan! Naruto ground out indignantly. Why does everyone keep laughing when I ask that? Oh. I'm sorry, Naruto. Sakura wiped away a tear of laughter. Don't get mad at me, but technically you are still a genin. You are the only one of our age group registered as an active Konoha nin that is still a genin. Sai offered helpfully. What? Naruto said, stunned. You didn't have to say it like that. Sakura smacked Sai on the back of the head. I'm not the one who was laughing at him. Naruto watched their bickering, fingertips lightly touching the table and halfway out of his chair. Had he completely misunderstood something? He racked his memory. Everyone said he faced the Akatsuki member that had destroyed the village, right? But Kakashi had also said that he didn't actually beat him, that he'd sacrificed himself after being convinced to give up. That didn't really mean that Naruto was necessarily powerful at all. After all this time, he was still the dead last, the only one in their group still a puny genin? Naruto, Sakura said as Naruto hit his forehead on the table. You don't have to take it so hard. I said technically you're still a genin. Everybody knows you're better than that. It's just the circumstances. You haven't had a chance to take the exam since the first time. Oh, really? He said tonelessly, face pressed into the table. Yeah, she answered earnestly. Take the current situation, for example. Could you imagine us holding a Chunin exams in the state we're in right now? And you've been out of the village a lot, training or out on a mission at all the wrong times. It's just a coincidence, I promise. Then, how strong am I? Sakura glanced to the side and rubbed her arm. I don't think it would be a good idea to tell you a lot about your future self. What if it changes something? Besides, you should already know that you are strong. He crossed his arms, dissatisfied. Since you guys are just waiting around, come help me unload some boxes, Sakura said, standing and rinsing her coffee mug out in the sink. We're short-handed anyway. Giving a defeated sigh at the change of subject, Naruto followed her out with Sai and Pakken. They only barely made it out of the break room before Sakura stopped dead. Konohamaru! She roared. What do you think you're doing? The others looked around Sakura curiously. Moegi and Udon were unloading crates, and two Konohamarus were pouring the contents from one barrel into another barrel. They were all wearing hitate. They were all genin. And all of them were currently frozen in place, staring at Sakura. This barrel was almost completely empty, Konohamaru said defiantly, but with an undercurrent of nervousness. I figured it would help save space if, idiot! Sakura raged, punching one of the Konohamarus. The clone disappeared in a puff of smoke and the barrel fell to the ground. You can't mix random medicinal herbs. Now this stock is unusable. Wah, Sakura Nichin! Konohamaru cried, reeling backward as he dodged another punch. I'm sorry! Konohamaru-kun! Moegi sighed, doing a facepalm. Squirt! Konohamaru! Naruto called, running into the scene eagerly. Konohamaru stopped in his retreat long enough to glare at him. Who are you calling Squirt? You're smaller than I am, Korra! With dismay, Naruto realized that he was right. Shorter than Konohamaru. This was what it had come to. No, he was almost certain that he would be the taller of the two if not for the henge, at least by a few centimeters. If he could just dispel it. Never mind that, Naruto said out loud, trying to shake off his irritation. He had completely overlooked the fact that Konohamaru would probably be a ninja by now. There was something much more pressing at hand. Let me see your Oiroku no Jutsu! Eh? Konohamaru stopped to look at him in confusion. Naruto didn't notice Sakura stalking toward him until it was too late. With a vicious cry of Shinaro, she reared back and planted her fist into his jaw. Naruto flew, skidded a few times across the warehouse floor, and finally rolled to a stop against a stack of crates all the way on the opposite end. Sai had been right to question Naruto's experience. Sakura definitely hit harder than before. 10-0, Sakura Nichin, Konohamaru chirped. Oh wow, what the hell? Naruto groaned, sitting up and rubbing his jaw. Sorry to interrupt everyone, Sai said, stepping in between Sakura and Konohamaru before more bodies went flying. Sakura, Pakken just vanished. Kakashi-sensei must have summoned him back. That's the signal that they found something, right? Do you think we should go back to the boarding house to wait for him? Sakura said. We will go, Sai said. You should finish up first. I don't think Tsunade-sama would like you skipping out. Ugh. You're right. But send me a message if Kakashi-sensei shows up. I'll be over as soon as possible. Naruto had dragged himself back to the group, still rubbing his face and muttering under his breath. Sakura sighed and reached out toward him. Naruto winced, but she just placed her hand on the side of his jaw. A moment later her hand glowed with green energy and the pain and swelling faded away. You're blushing, stupid face, Sai observed with interest. Shut up. I am not. Sakura just rolled her eyes as the two walked away, Naruto shooting venomous words at Sai with no effect whatsoever. What was that all about, Kore? Get back to work. Eep. Yes, Sakura Nichin. Hours later they were still waiting. Naruto thumbed the edges of tail of the utterly gutsy shinobi. He'd taken it to try passing the time, but ended up fidgeting restlessly instead of reading. There was something slightly awkward in this atmosphere that made it difficult to focus on anything. Sai was sitting at the small wooden table across from him, sketching peacefully. He had changed into a more battle-ready gray outfit, complete with a taite and implements for his jutsu, just in case they got called out. Sakura was sitting in the sill of the open window gazing out at the darkening sky, an occasional breeze lifting the ends of her hair. As weird as Sai was, at least he was an unknown to him from the start, and he seemed way more forthright when answering Naruto's questions, even if he still didn't give away very much. Sakura was just odd. She deflected even his most, relatively, sneaky attempts at getting information out of her, and he couldn't even get a read on how she felt about him being around. Whatever she thought, she was doing a good job of keeping it to herself. Naruto's attempts at conversation had puttered out a while ago. Things were quiet, peaceful, and grating. He should be back by now, right? Naruto blurted out. It has definitely been enough time to get from there to here. Sakura turned her gaze from the street to Naruto. Maybe, but if they found something, it's possible they had to investigate it a little more. Besides, you know Kakashi-sensei likes to take his sweet time when people are waiting for him. Yeah, Naruto grumbled. He perked up suddenly. Hey, Sakura-chan, did we ever get to see under his mask? Does he have big teeth, or what? Sorry. At this point I think it'll never happen. Sakura waved a hand. He'll probably take it to his grave. Figures. Naruto leaned his elbow on the table and cradled his chin thoughtfully. Is it really true that he died during the attack on the village? Where did you hear that? He told me. And the guy who did it had a super crazy revival jutsu and brought everyone who died back to life. If he told you, why are you asking me? Naruto scowled at her. I thought you could tell me more about it. Like, how it happened. Why I wasn't there to stop it. Sakura bit her lip. I'm sorry, but if there's any way we can reverse this and you go back to your own time, if you know too much, but it would be good if I used that to keep people from getting killed, right? Naruto pressed. It's not your responsibility. We've already relied on you too much. Sai stopped sketching and watched their exchange with unreadable black eyes. What do you mean? Naruto said, slightly hurt. Don't you trust me? It's not like that. It's dangerous to meddle with time. Haven't you ever watched late-night made-for-TV films? No. I'm a growing boy who needs plenty of rest. I go to bed at a reasonable hour, Naruto said virtuously. And you don't watch anything that could have ghosts in it. Sai added, why would I care if something has ghosts in it? You're scared of them, obviously. You would rather camp outside than willingly go into a potentially haunted house. Naruto HMPF'd obstinately. You piss me off, you know that? And all was right with the world, Sakura said with fake brightness. What about him? Naruto jerked his thumb at Sai. I'm not supposed to know him yet. Aren't you afraid that could change things? Maybe, but back then, he was en route. Right, Naruto said flatly, putting his chin back on his hand. Because that explains everything. A smart rapping came on the door and everyone jumped slightly. None of them had heard or felt a presence out in the hallway. Finally, Naruto jumped up. Wait, Naruto. Sakura slid down from the windowsill. Let one of us. But he was already opening the door. The first thing he saw when he opened the door was a plain black cloak. His eyes trailed up and fixed on a pale face with fine cracks running through it like an ancient porcelain doll, framed with black center-parted bangs. Set in this face were terrifying eyes, black sclera and red irises with 3 tomo marks in each of them. No way, Naruto said, stunned. A kunai slipped into Uchiha Itachi's hand and Sai pushed Naruto hard in the chest to force him back. Sai used the other hand to block Itachi's strike with the tanto strapped on his back. Naruto stumbled backward and ran clumsily into the corner of his bookshelf, but he barely registered the pain. Sai and Itachi locked eyes for a brief moment, before Sai suddenly stilled and crumpled to the ground. The proportions of red and black in Itachi's eyes melded and shifted back from the strange form they had taken. He stepped over Sai's prone form into the room. Sai! Naruto choked out. He pushed off from the bookshelf and formed a sign. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. His chakra was fully restored, but still felt slippery to control. He managed to summon 2 stable clones. The first one rushed Itachi as a distraction. Naruto held out his hand to the other to begin molding chakra on his palm. The first clone was swiftly dispatched with a spinning kick. When Naruto couldn't feel the Rasengan forming, he glanced at the other one, only to see it staring at him with a sadistic grin on its face. The clone lunged at Naruto and grabbed him from behind, looping its arms under his and locking its hands together behind his neck. The joke's on you, boss, it said. Itachi was steadily approaching, and a kunai slipped into his hand again. Naruto tried to wiggle out of his own clone's grasp, but it was no use. He could only watch as Itachi reared back and plunged the knife into his heart, blood springing free from his body and splattering on that impassive face. He screamed. Wake up, Naruto! He gasped and blinked. Sakura's hand gripped his shoulder firmly. He had you in his genjutsu, she said grimly. Try not to look at his eyes or hands. Are you alright? Why, yeah, he said shakily. Itachi was still standing at the front of the room with Sai lying on the floor behind him. Naruto decided to give it another shot. He crossed one hand over the other. Wait, Sakura hissed, pulling his shoulder insistently. I had to disrupt your chakra to snap you out of the genjutsu, and it broke your henge. If he didn't know it was you before, he definitely does now. You have to get out of here. Naruto summoned 2 more clones, which were, sure enough, the spiky blonde variety he was used to. The first stood in front of them protectively with its arms spread. The second finally managed to get started on a Rasengan in his palm. Naruto! Stop! We can't just leave Sai, he said. If I hit Itachi with this to keep him busy, do you think you could reach Sai? If we have to run away, we should at least do it together. I wasn't saying we. Naruto started his charge. His 2 clones dispersed, and he lunged at Itachi, who was walking forward slowly. The silent Uchiha didn't dodge when Naruto gave a battle cry and plunged the Rasengan into his chest. The whirling spiral of chakra met unresisting flesh and Naruto's hand went through his body before the energy dispersed into the air. Itachi's body jerked, and ash-like flakes flew from the wound, but there was no blood, and he didn't cry out or change his blank expression. Confused and slightly horrified at the sight of his hand piercing through someone, something he'd only seen Kakashi accomplish, Naruto was caught off guard, and Itachi gladly took that opening. He grabbed Naruto by the throat with a bone-crushingly strong grip and lifted him off the ground. Naruto choked and kicked out with his legs, but it was no good. He remembered all too well when Itachi had used a tactic like this on Sasuke. It hadn't ended well. He had to escape. Naruto was only suspended for a moment, however. A flash of pink entered his vision, and he saw Sakura cleave through Itachi's arm below the elbow using the blade above her tool pouch. Itachi stepped back and Naruto fell to the floor, coughing. The arm dissolved into ash-like pieces and started reforming itself on the stump Sakura had left him with. "What the hell is going on?" Naruto coughed, his voice coming out raspy. "I'm not sure," Sakura said tersely, putting away the blade and standing in front of Naruto with her fists raised in a stance. "We once fought someone we thought was Itachi, but it turned out to be one of Pain's techniques. But this doesn't look like that technique. It couldn't be anyway." Her fists tightened. "I have an idea of what this is. I really hope I'm wrong, though. What do you think we should do?" Itachi's arm finished regenerating and he lifted his reformed hand into a half-ram seal. A wave of heavy, overwhelming pressure fell over them like a sudden increase in the pull of gravity on their bodies. The lights in the room started to dim to almost nothing. Darkness encroached on their senses. "He's trying to trap us both at the same time," Sakura said through gritted teeth. Her hands and arms were drooping and her back was bending, as if her limbs suddenly weighed a ton. "Need to break out of it." She tried to lift her hands to form a seal, but it was proving difficult. "Damn it," Naruto muttered. He was still on the floor. He tried reaching for a kunai, but quickly remembered that everything he owned was in the past. His hand flopped to the floor uselessly once he realized, energy spent from the simple movement. "It's just an illusion," he tried to tell himself. "Your body isn't really this heavy. It's suggestion. Snap out of it." The mere effort of standing was making Sakura breathe heavily, and her knees were bowing in as if they were mere moments away from folding. She gave a long inhale, squared her shoulders a little bit, and then wrenched her arm back as far as it would go with an enraged roar. When she hit the floor with her fist, it disintegrated into wood pulp and thousands of tiny splinters. Naruto closed his eyes and felt the entire world collapse out from under him. Large cracks ripped through the floor, wood groaning and snapping like broken bones. The whole mass churned and took him with it as it fell down to the level below, pelting him with debris in a heart-stopping drop that felt much longer than it must have really been. He landed on his back hard enough to evict the air from his lungs and he reflexively curled and put his hands over his head as debris continued to fall around him. Through the chaos he heard shrieks and shouts. These continued after the noise of the collapse subsided. New voices emerged and settled into a loud running hum of confusion and distress. Naruto heard a muffled cough much closer by, and he squinted through his arms. Sakura was hanging over him, coughing into the crook of her elbow. Her other hand was next to his head and he realized that she'd shielded him with her body. She didn't appear to be badly wounded, but her arms and face had scratches on them, and the end of a beam was propped up on her back, looking like it had fallen on her. "As Sakura-chan?" he said through what felt like a mouthful of sawdust. "Are you okay?" she asked, turning to look down at him. "Am I okay?" he yelped. "You just made a floor of a building fall on top of yourself. It's all right, no broken bones or concussion." She frowned suddenly and put a glowing green hand around his head, as if checking him for concussion. "More importantly, we broke out of that genjutsu. Otherwise, we'd probably be dead." Naruto sat up quickly and she didn't try to stop him. Apparently he wasn't concussed, though he felt a little bit like he was. "Itachi? And Sai? What happened? What's going on? An explosion? Someone alert Hokage-sama." Sakura stood up, wrestling a little with the beam before managing to slide it safely to the side. "I don't see Itachi. He may have run away. With all these people around, not even he can take on the whole village," she said. "We need to find Sai, though. He was unconscious." Naruto peeked warily over the edge of the little hole of debris they were in. They had landed in the lounge/eating area on the first floor. Most of it was piled with debris. Everyone that had been in the building was gathering around the damage. Part of the first floor's wall had been knocked out, and a crowd from the street was also rapidly forming. Several cooks were huddled at the doorway to the kitchen. It was adjacent to the dining room, and there was no clear path for them to get out. Itachi was nowhere to be seen. He disappeared just as suddenly as he showed up. Chapter 6: Night. A splintered piece of beam fell down onto the debris. Everyone started talking at once. But then a voice rang out from the chatter. "Sakura! Naruto saw Ino looking through the hole out to the street. She climbed into the room and jumped lightly over the barricade of splintered wood to reach Sakura. Shikamaru and Chuji were standing in the street looking shocked and concerned, but they soon followed after her. What happened? Ino landed lightly in front of her best friend and gripped her by the arms. Are you okay? We were just passing by and heard this huge crash. I'm fine, Sakura reassured. But there might be people buried in the collapse that need help. Hey! One of the cooks called anxiously. There were 4 or 5 shinobi sitting out here. Sakura turned to them, stretching her neck to see over the large pile in between them. Can you guys get out? Were there any civilians in the dining room? I don't think so. The maid left hours ago, and all of us cooks were in the kitchen getting dinner started. Anyone under there? If you can answer, speak up, Ino shouted, cupping her hands around her mouth. I'm here, called a voice weakly from somewhere in the mess. Help me, pleaded another. I think my leg is broken. Sakura cursed to herself and clambered gingerly toward the voice. Hold on. We'll get you out. Now you've done it, Sakura-chan. Naruto climbed up out of the hole and dusted himself off. Naruto? Ino looked down at him confusedly from her at least a head taller height, holding out a hand to compare the difference. What happened to you? Hey, long story? Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Ino just blinked at him. Like Sakura, she'd grown taller and fitter and some of the childishness had gone out of her face. However, unlike Sakura, she had grown her flax blonde hair back from when she cut it in the exam. Shikamaru didn't look different at all, though he'd grown taller, and he did look sort of funny in a chunin vest. It was hard to imagine him being promoted. Chuji was as big as ever, but his proportions had evened out a bit, and he had grown his hair out. He now wore a more traditional-looking Akimichi outfit with armor plating. Naruto was relieved that all three seemed more concerned with the matter at hand than his own appearance at the moment. Chuji, Shikamaru said, nodding toward where Sakura was kneeling and peering into a hollow. Yeah. Chuji held his hands in his family's signature expansion jutsu sign and reached out with a huge hand to lift debris off of the unfortunate shinobi. Sakura wasted no time in attending to the man's leg. Chuji carefully dropped it all to the side and reached out to continue clearing the room. Naruto, we could use a few dozen of you to help clear this stuff out, alright? Shikamaru spared him a glance. Ino, let's get everyone out of the building, starting with those cooks. If the structure was damaged, it could come the rest of the way down any time. Be careful where you step. He jumped over the pile to the doorway of the kitchen. Right, Ino said, following suit. OSU! Naruto concentrated on his chakra. It seemed to flow more naturally each time he used it, like a sputtering tap that had once dried out. 30 clones popped into existence, and he set them to task. Naruto himself picked carefully toward where he thought Sai could be. He saw the table from his room and headed toward it. Sakura-chan, there's a guy here with a pretty bad cut on his head, one of the clones called out. Shinobi from the second floor that had been watching the whole thing jumped down through the hole to help shift things out of the way, calling to one another and organizing their efforts. It was no wonder. They were practically professional disaster recoverers at this point. Naruto looked under the thick wooden table from his room and was semi-relieved not to see Sai there. Something that heavy falling on him would have been really bad. However, he did find Sai's sketchpad poking out of the pile of splintered boards nearby, and he tucked it under his arm. Naruto peered around. The impact from the table's fall had caused some of the tatami mats in the dining room to bend and stick up in the air. He shouldered himself under a likely-looking tatami mat and saw a pale arm. Sai, he said with a mixture of worry and relief, and grabbed the boy under his arms and pulled him backwards out of the pile. Fortunately, he didn't look hurt, aside from a few scratches. Hey, wake up, Sai, Naruto said, tapping the sides of his face lightly. Sai's face twitched, and his eyes opened. His gaze looked vague and glassy. It was an expression that looked horribly familiar. Oh crap, Naruto mumbled, waving his hand over Sai's face. Don't tell me he did that thing. Sai lifted his hand up a little and Naruto paused his waving. Sai blinked and slowly pushed Naruto's hand away. Don't worry, Sai said in a dazed voice. Then he passed out again. Naruto put Sai's arm over his shoulders and stood up resolutely, putting Sai's sketchbook in the pouch he was wearing so it wouldn't get lost. He jumped over to the hole in the wall that led out to the street. But there, framed perfectly by collapsed beams and plaster, was Tsunade. What the hell happened here? Tsunade seethed. Her hands were on her hips and he could swear her long pigtails were swaying in the energy radiating off her body. Ba-chan! Naruto said, terrified as he was relieved. I was going to try to find you. You have to help Sai. He had that brain melty thing done to him. I thought I told you stay out of trouble. Tsunade raised a fist and Naruto backed up by a step. Can you explain to me why you insist on doing the opposite of that all of the time? And what happened to your disguise? Tsunade-sama. Shizen said, laying a hand on Tsunade's arm and looking at Sai. I can explain it later. Naruto said quickly. It's Sakura-chan's fault anyway, so yell at her about it. But forget that right now. Itachi showed up and used that Saku, what's it on Sai. And there are probably some other people who need to go to the hospital too. Itachi? Shizen gasped. You don't mean Uchiha Itachi? Tsunade-sama. Shikamaru interjected, causing Naruto to whip his head toward him. He hadn't noticed the other boy approach. The building has been evacuated and we've recovered everyone buried in the debris. Sakura is helping them now, but she wants to move some to the hospital. She said she can explain what happened there. Fine. Tsunade said curtly. She turned to Shizen. You go the autopsy room. I'll be down there after I deal with this, but send for me if you have to. Shikamaru, go with her. Ha! Why me? I sent Kakashi to investigate something earlier. Tsunade said. Naruto looked up sharply at the mention of his teacher's name, but she ignored him. Apparently, they found something pretty mysterious. Shizen will be busy, so I need you to listen to Kakashi's report, and, along with Shizen's findings, help them put together some possible explanations for what they found. Right. Shikamaru sighed. Shizen nodded and walked away at a brisk clip. Shikamaru glanced at Naruto and sighed one last time before trailing after her, looking in much less of a hurry. All right. Tsunade said resignedly. Follow me, Naruto. I don't know why I thought things could ever be quiet with you around. Naruto let out a long, shaky breath. Maybe all this really is a dream, and I just have a great imagination. Tsunade and Sakura looked at him. All three were standing in the hospital room where Sai lay sleeping. Thanks to Tsunade, it was a natural sleep untroubled by dreams. Night had truly fallen now, and the fluorescent lights made him look even paler than usual. The two women had been murmuring quietly together when Naruto's musings drew their attention. It's like... Naruto wrapped his hand around the cold metal of the bed's footboard. All of this just happened, where I was, but it was all slightly different. An attack on the village. Itachi. Someone ending up, like this. He gestured towards Sai. Tsunade sighed and moved beside him, laying her hand over his. Sai is going to be fine. His body is trying to compensate for what it thinks has been multiple days without sleeping. He's had a lifetime of specialized psychological training. A Tsukuyami designed for just any shinobi is unlikely to have a lasting effect on him. I hate to say it, but out of the three of you, it was probably best that it hit him. It was aimed for me, Naruto said quietly. Sai jumped in between us. He could have defended himself if he hadn't been trying to push me out of the way. It's an especially good thing then, Tsunade said, trying to joke. I'm sure that Sai is more than capable of handling 3 days of watching someone eat ramen in front of him without sharing. Naruto shrugged unenthusiastically. Tsunade pulled back. In all seriousness, that's likely what saved you from being captured. The confrontation was only meant to last a few seconds. Sai gave you time to realize what was happening, involve a bunch of witnesses. Her voice turned wry. And cause a massive amount of collateral damage. Sakura flinched at the jibe, but she didn't try to argue. The door to the hospital room opened, and everyone there heads to see an aged woman enter. Her face was deeply lined, her hair in a tidy silver bun, and she wore loose but elegant clothing. Naruto recognized her as a member of the Third's entourage, but since she was one of the adults that seemed to consistently act as though he didn't exist even when he was in the same room, he never bothered to pay her much attention either. Tsunade put her hand on the footboard beside Naruto's and turned her body toward the visitor in a seemingly unconscious movement that blocked him most of the way from view. Naruto peered around her arm curiously. Koharu, Tsunade said. Did you need me for something? Koharu frowned, possibly in reaction to Tsunade's somewhat rude way of addressing her, which she chose to return. Tsunade. Why are you here instead of the autopsy room? I understand that you haven't even bothered to hear Hataki's report yet? Naruto could sense the tension in the room even if he wasn't entirely sure why it was there. The way Kohara scolded Tsunade was surprising to him. He didn't think anyone would try to talk to her like that, much less get away with it. What was more surprising was Sakura's body language, somehow even more defensive than Tsunade's. Her back was to Naruto, so he couldn't see her expression, but her shoulders were taut and fists were clenched at her sides. He didn't know much about the situation, but he was at least fairly certain that Sakura decking the older woman would be an even worse idea than punching out the floor of a building. Shizen is more than capable of handling an autopsy. We need that data before any conclusions can be made anyway, Tsunade said. In the meantime, I was hearing Sakura's report on the attack inside the village, which, I thought, took precedence over whatever happened outside. Very well, Kohara conceded with a nod. And? Any leads on who would try to incite panic by making it look like Uchiha Itachi appeared suddenly in our midst? Do you think it was done as a distraction, to turn our eyes inward? It was neither a distraction nor a trick. It was really him. Tsunade loosened her grip on the footboard and gestured at Sai's prone form. This boy was definitely on the receiving end of his Tsukuyomi. That is not a power that can simply be imitated. Kohara's normally squinted eyes opened as she fixed Tsunade with a serious look. But he's dead. Naruto, who was listening intently to the conversation in order to learn anything he could out of it, felt a swooping sensation in his stomach, as if he'd missed a stare. From what Sakura described, it was almost certainly Edo Tensei. Tsunade said steadily. Kohara's posture stiffened. Sakura still looked as if she was barely keeping herself from saying anything. Naruto continued listening hard. We can discuss this on the way to the autopsy room, Kohara said finally. In the meantime, what will you do with Naruto? You never gave an answer about that. Naruto was listening so carefully that he physically jerked when his name was said out of nowhere. She had to know he was there. He wasn't out of sight entirely, but she wasn't looking at him. She only looked at Tsunade, who continued to stand in front of him. Naruto and Sakura will stay in here with their teammate until I get back, Tsunade said. I do not think they will try to go after him again tonight. Besides, we shouldn't even think about moving him from the village until we can make an arrangement among the allied shinobi forces with regards to his protection. Kohara scoffed. Unusual circumstances aside, do you really think the other nations will accept the idea of 2 Konoha Jinchuriki? If the original 9 are already accounted for, there is no need to volunteer the information that there may be another one. Have you even checked to confirm whether this is even an issue worth talking about? Not thoroughly, Tsunade said through clenched teeth. We're not going to talk about this here. Come on. She marched toward the door. Sakura, keep an eye on Naruto and Sai until I get back, please. Yes, sure, Sakura said. She closed the door as the other two left. Naruto sat down slowly in a chair beside the bed, and Sakura sat down in a chair on the opposite side. She looked at Sai, but now that Naruto could see her face, he could tell that she wasn't really seeing him. Her nose was wrinkled in disgust, and she was glaring at Sai as if he'd mortally offended her. No doubt that had actually happened at some point, with his weird personality, but in this moment it didn't fit. Sakura-chan? Naruto said quietly. She blinked and her eyes snapped to him, the harsh expression melting into a politely questioning one. What is it between you and that old lady? I've never even seen you give me a look that bad. Sakura took a deep breath, held it for about 10 seconds, and then let it out slowly. Her eyes dropped to where her hands were lying in her lap. It's not her, she said eventually. Not really. Not, personally, I suppose. It's that whole mindset I hate. She's definitely not the only one, and not even the worst. It's more, that kind of thinking has hurt my friends. She took another deep breath and blew it out noisily. After everything the village has been through, I'm just sick of it. When I think about it being directed at you, even more than it already has, I get so mad. She clenched her teeth and said no more. Hey, it's okay. Naruto frowned. I don't know what you're talking about, but if it's something from after my time, well, it's not upsetting me, so you shouldn't let it upset you. Sakura looked over at him fiercely. You're right. It doesn't matter that much anymore. If you'd shown up while that man was still around. She pursed her lips. Anyway, I probably shouldn't get into that. If I did, I wouldn't be able to keep my mouth shut about other things. Why? Naruto leaned forward eagerly. Sakura-chan, if you tell me, There might be a chance I could. No. Sakura growled. Okay. He cast around for another topic. What were they talking about a minute ago? About me leaving the village? Kakashi-sensei was saying something like that too. The youth from this time just left for the Lightning Country, Sakura said. To make it harder for Akatsuki to find you. I'm not surprised it's the first thing they thought of. Tsunade-sama must have told the heads already. It's a big deal. It is? Naruto frowned. I mean, obviously me coming from the past is a big deal, but that old lady seemed to care less about that than getting me into hiding as soon as possible. We've had a little more time to see just how serious our enemies are, Sakura said dryly. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. It's just weird having people make this much fuss over me. Last time, Itachi and that fish guy both appeared in the village and took out a few jounin, but nobody was saying I needed to be sent away. Akatsuki has managed to capture most of the Jinchuriki, so people are finally starting to care a little about the ones left. It's not always out of the sheer goodness in their hearts. There was that word again. Naruto frowned. He could ignore it if people didn't keep using it in reference to himself. Jinchuriki? That's what it's called when someone has a tailed beast in them, Sakura said slowly. I don't know when the term got coined, but it was a long time ago. You didn't know it? Tailed beast? Naruto scowled. A pit of unease was growing in his gut, and his heart was starting to beat a little faster, but he wasn't sure why. His body was reacting to something his mind hadn't quite connected together yet. Sakura stared at him. She was starting to look as uneasy as he felt. You do know why the Akatsuki want to capture you in the first place, right? I thought. She fell silent. Naruto nodded emphatically, feeling his heart beat somewhere in the vicinity of his throat. He was too afraid to say it. But he was starting to understand. Because Sakura looked around helplessly, as if searching for a more delicate way of saying it. That's what the QB is. Naruto shot up out of his chair, staring at her in wide-eyed realization. Sakura looked almost as alarmed as she stood up too. Naruto? I'm sorry, I thought that you knew Akatsuki was C-crap. I wouldn't have wanted you to find out like this. Naruto just shook his head. He knew exactly why Akatsuki was after him. The problem was, last he checked, the only people who knew the QB was sealed in him were all old enough to actually remember its attack on the village. There was even a law about it. Even he wasn't supposed to know about it, and after he'd found out, a small part of him had been glad for the law, because most of the people who knew the truth couldn't trouble themselves to regard him as human. The problem was the thing that always hurt him the most, even before he knew what it was, had always been locked up tight. And now it was apparently common knowledge. In a way, it made sense. After all, the whole village had been leveled to the ground just to find him. That was bound to make it obvious he wasn't just a normal kid. People would have to have answers. They would need to know exactly why their homes were destroyed. They needed to label the source of their pain in order to be able to understand and move past it. Sorry, he muttered. I need a minute. Wait, Naruto. Sakura called in alarm, but he'd already opened the window and climbed out. Naruto figured Sakura would be coming after him soon, maybe even with Tsunade, and it was possible that both of them would be very angry. That was okay. He just needed a little breathing room. Jinchuriki. He rolled that word over and over in his mind. That's what they called it. Sakura and the old lady said there were others like him, too. That shouldn't have been such a surprise. He'd met someone else like him already, right? But Naruto had never considered the wider implications when he met Gaara. He just empathized so immediately and intensely with the other boy that all his focus had been on trying to help him. Naruto hopped down from the rooftop into a narrow gap between two buildings and leaned back against the wall, concentrating on breathing deeply with his eyes closed. Hiding in close, dark spaces was an old habit that he rarely did anymore. It was usually better to face fears and problems head-on. But sometimes, the instinct to hide and let it all sink in would come back. Gaara had been a frightening glimpse at what could have been. Everyone in Suna knew what he was. Even his own siblings were terrified of him. That was the first time Naruto had been a little grateful his own age group didn't know. They didn't get the chance to decide he was a monster before he could show that he wasn't. But maybe that was exactly how it turned out. Everyone seemed to like him just fine. When he stopped to think about it, nobody had acted any differently. The bustling sounds of the streets slowly came back as a measure of calm returned. Naruto knew he could trust his friends. It was just a minor shock after walking around the whole day unaware. Even the first people he'd spoken to in this time had known, and they weren't even citizens of Konoha. Yet they hadn't sounded disgusted when they talked about him. That had to count for something. And Gaara? Was he in danger from Akatsuki, too? Was Suna in danger? Sakura said most of the Jinchuriki were already captured. Naruto opened his eyes and looked up at the small rectangular patch of night sky he could see from down in the narrow alley. He had to know. Even if they didn't want to tell him stuff, he would poke around until somebody told him whether Gaara was safe. Having something to focus his energy on made his head feel a lot clearer. Naruto sidled sideways until he was out in the street again, only to jump when a voice called him. "Why, Naruto!" He swore under his breath and turned to see Kiba and Akamaru ambling toward him, with Shino and Hinata flanking him on each side. "Oh, it's you guys." Naruto looked over Team 8 with interest. Now that he knew Kiba really was older, it was much more obvious. Shino was so covered with clothes that if he hadn't been with the rest of his team, Naruto wasn't sure he would have known him. Hinata had grown her hair out and stood taller, and it wasn't just her literal height. The way she was standing made her look less curled into herself than before, though her feet were still a little pigeon-toed. The biggest difference, though, was that she was looking right at him, whereas before, she would have been looking at the ground near his feet. Kiba walked toward Naruto. "So it's true then?" he said without any preamble. "You're actually from the past?" "Probably." Naruto rubbed the back of his head. "Or maybe I just ate too much before I went to bed, and this is some kinda weird dream." Tsunade-sama told the clan heads. "Some people thought you might just be a really bad spy," Kiba said seriously. "We saw where your boarding house got destroyed. Ino said Akatsuki already tried to get you. I guess that backs your claims up a little." "What, you don't believe me?" "Nah. I knew what I smelled, and besides, Akamaru can always sense when someone has evil intent, and he walked up to you right away. Man, only you could have something like this happen to you, though." Kiba patted Naruto on the head in a way that he really didn't like, and laughed loudly. "I should have realized something was going on, with how short you are." "Piss off, Kiba," Naruto growled, ducking out from under his hand and glaring. "You might be older than me now, but I can still take you on, any time." "He is just relieved," Shino said. He thought he might have been mistaken and led an enemy to the village. Even so, he let his guard down. He depends on his nose too much. "Hey!" Kiba snarled, "like you don't use your bugs for everything and like Hinata doesn't use her eyes for everything. We all have our own skills we depend on. Don't put Hinata in the same category as you. She's definitely smarter than you are." Naruto snorted. Hinata bit her lip. She seemed too worried to be quietly amused as she normally would be by their banter. She frowned and pressed the tips of her fingers together anxiously. "Are you all right, Naruto-kun?" Her voice was remarkably steady, especially compared to the way he remembered it, but it was still very soft and quiet. "Yeah, I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me." He grinned reassuringly. "It's no big deal. All I have to do is figure out how to get back to my own time, and everything will be okay. The only hard part is figuring out the weirdness of this time. Everyone seems so grown up and amazing. I really want to know more about myself, but no one wants to tell me anything. They said you would be sent away, too." Hinata's voice lilted up at the end slightly, a half-question. "Oh, right. Do you know where you'll be going?" Kiba asked. "No. I don't want to leave." Naruto frowned. "I just want to go home. But Kakashi-sensei said it's too easy for Akatsuki to find me here, and I guess he's right since I was here for less than a day before Itachi came after me." "What?" Hinata gasped, and Shino raised his eyebrows. "Oh," Naruto said. "I thought Ino told you. All she said was someone tried to kidnap you, and the house was damaged in the struggle," Hinata said. "Was it really him?" "I thought that guy was dead," Kiba said. "I know what I saw. Ask Sakura-chan, she was there. She's the one who smashed the building." Naruto looked around at the other three. "Why do people think he's dead anyway? Was it? I mean, did Sasuke finally kill him?" Saying this thought aloud gave Naruto a slight chill. Sasuke killing his own older brother was difficult to imagine. He didn't doubt Sasuke's determination, and the memory of their last confrontation was still fresh in his mind. But it was still surreal to think about. To pull it off, Sasuke would have had to improve at an unthinkable rate in the intervening years. That's what I heard, Kiba said. But with Akatsuki, who knows? They definitely had a fight. We didn't get to see it, though. We tried, but that masked bastard got in the way and kept us from interfering. By the time we got there, it was just a bunch of rubble. There weren't any bodies, so I dunno, maybe he did get out of it alive. I don't suppose anybody's tried asking Sasuke if it's true. Kiba-kun, be careful. Hinata stared down at her fidgeting hands. Oh, right. Kiba frowned. Well, you know. That's not the kind of thing you just ask someone, especially someone like him. You know how touchy he can be. Kiba rubbed the back of his head awkwardly. Naruto scrunched his nose in confusion. I guess I'll just ask Sakura-chan about it. Her and Bachan seem to think it's some kind of technique that looks like him. Ah, damn it! He put his face in his hands and groaned. I forgot, she's probably looking for me right now. I'd better go back to the hospital before she finds me and turns my insides into my outsides. That would probably be wise, a dryly amused voice said, and everyone started when a cat-masked Anbu appeared in their midst. Naruto vaguely recognized the mask, as well as her long, purple hair. He'd had enough clashes with the Anbu that he knew several of them by sight. The Anbu put a hand on her hip. Did you really think you could wander off alone? No, Naruto said honestly. I thought Sakura-chan was going to come after me and punch my head in. She wanted to come after you. However, we convinced her to let us handle it. Naruto glanced behind her and saw two more Anbu standing on rooftops at a distance. Undoubtedly they were scanning the area for potential threats even as Naruto and the purple-haired lady stood there talking. He fleetingly wondered if this was what his stay in the future was going to be like from now on. Talk to you guys later, he said glumly. It was cool seeing you. Kiba called after him as they walked away. Kat poised her hand behind Naruto's back in a half-protective, half-ushering motion. We should totally have a rematch from the exams. I'll definitely be able to show you a few new tricks. Nah, Naruto called back. I could still beat you as easily as I can fart. He snickered as Kiba's indignant growls chased him down the street. Kat chuckled. Naruto's other bodyguards didn't join them. Instead, they leapt across the rooftops, running slightly ahead and flanking them on each side of the street. Chapter 7 Bind. Now that Naruto was being escorted by the Anbu without a disguise, he attracted looks from many of the people on the street. The destroyed village didn't light up the night sky like it used to, and the glow of lamps and storefronts on the main street cut a bright path through the darkness. Walking through it felt a little like being on display. But these looks were not the type he was used to. The hostility had already diminished some in his time, but even then, it had mostly been replaced with indifference and the occasional curiosity. Quite a few people were looking at him curiously now, while some looked concerned. Some people even smiled fondly at him. Naruto wondered how many of them knew what was going on. He felt a little self-conscious and walked closer beside the cat Anbu. So you guys were guarding us the whole time? He said awkwardly. Tsunade-sama told us to stay with you and Sakura-san, Kat said. Though another attack tonight is unlikely, all our defenses have been demolished. It isn't as safe here as we would like. So I guess you've heard our conversation? It's true, isn't it? I mean, everyone really knows about me now. She didn't have to ask what he meant. Yes. It was inevitable, once Akatsuki started taking serious action against the world's Jinchuriki. People had to know why you were being hunted, and why it was so important that Akatsuki be stopped. How did they take it? Just tell me. And don't try to say you can't. Naruto looked away from here. Don't worry. Everyone accepts you. Kat answered in an uncharacteristically gentle tone for an Anbu. You're the village hero. I think your old schoolmates barely batted an eye. The older generation already knew, and the younger ones followed the lead of your peers. If someone from Akatsuki came after you in the street right now, they wouldn't have just us Anbu to contend with. They'd have to fight through everyone down to the civilian street sweeper with their broom to get to you. Naruto felt warmth rising to his cheeks. Okay, that had to be an exaggeration, but it felt good anyway. He turned back toward Kat eagerly. Can't you tell me something about my older self? It would be difficult to say. We aren't personally acquainted. At his disappointed look, she added, but from what I have seen, you've grown up admirably. It doesn't always go that way in our line of work, you know. Everyone has a breaking point, where it all becomes too much to take in at once. That's especially true for those given the role of Jinchuriki. Continue living and being yourself. That's my advice. Kat escorted him all the way back to the hospital. They parted ways at the door to Sai's room, Kat assuring him that they need only call if anything happened. Sakura looked up from a book she was reading when he came in. She didn't seem angry, like had only half-jokingly suspected, but deeply apprehensive. I'm sorry, she said immediately. I didn't mean to. It's okay, Sakura-chan. He walked over and made to sit across from her again, but paused when he saw a drawstring bag sitting in the chair. One of the ANBU went and collected some things from your room, Sakura said. What was left of it, anyway? Naruto opened the drawstring bag and saw his Team 7 photograph laying on top. Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi was below that. Was it the only book they could find, or did they know it was his older self's favorite? Below that were a few shirts and a thin, ratty-looking blanket. We'll be staying here until Tsunade-sama can figure out what to do with you, Sakura explained. Most of your older self's clothes would be too big for you, so they didn't bring much. I grabbed a few things for you from supplies donated to the hospital. She pointed at the bed across from Sai's, where a few small piles of folded clothing lay. We're sleeping here? Naruto groaned in dismay as he dragged the bag over to look at what she'd brought. There was a pair of shorts like the ones he was wearing, and a few pairs of shinobi pants and one set of striped pajama bottoms. There were also standard-issue sandals, and a few plain, boring t-shirts closer to his own size. Sakura smiled wryly. Sorry about that. They have this room secured now, so you're not going anywhere else tonight. You might as well get comfortable. I'm kind of glad. This way I can look after my patients and you too. I don't need looking after, Naruto muttered, but he twitched the curtains around his bed and started changing from his old bedclothes into new ones. This is all way overboard, Sakura-chan. I'm a ninja. I know, she conceded. And under normal circumstances, I'm sure everyone would gladly leave a ninja alone to face the murderous S-ranked organization trying to kidnap them. But with you there's more at stake than just yourself. Naruto murmured an indistinct stream of curses and grumblings as he pulled on the pajama bottoms Sakura had scrounged for him. He set his sandals down below the edge of the curtain and packed the straw tabi carefully in the bag. He would return them to Shinji, if he was ever allowed out of the village ever again. He put on one of his older self's shirts to sleep in. It felt a lot more comfortable than any of the other clothes from strangers. It was his favorite style, and it smelled familiar. It was one of the few tangible connections to someone that seemed like a bizarre abstraction in his mind. Naruto pulled the curtain back and crawled into bed with his book and turned on the little bedside lamp. He may have to stay here, but he was determined to stay awake until Tsunade came back to tell them what was going on. He would not be left out of hearing any updates she brought to Sakura. Naruto pulled the covers up to his chest and leaned back against the stack of pillows. Isn't Tsunade-bachan supposed to go see what Kakashi-sensei found out? And why doesn't he come talk to us? I don't know. I've been out of the loop right beside you, remember? But they were going to the autopsy room. My guess is, wherever Kakashi-sensei went, there was a death that was unusual for some reason. Tsunade-sama said they can't make any conclusions until they figure it out. Oh yeah? I remember that. Naruto leaned forward. Does that mean Akatsuki didn't just attack here today? Maybe, Sakura said cautiously. We'll just have to wait until they're done. Naruto gripped the blankets on his lap. Will I ever actually be told anything, though? Well, I guess it depends. Great. Naruto grumbled, flopped on his side, and opened his book. Itachi shows up for me again. My room gets smashed. I have to sleep in the hospital even though I'm not sick. I'm covered in ANBU, and I don't even know if I've screwed up this timeline by getting someone killed that shouldn't have been. Whatever happened, or whatever happens, it's not your fault, Sakura said. Don't forget that. It's someone else doing this, and it's not fair to you. Naruto didn't answer right away. He stared at the open page without reading it. No matter how many times people told him the future was none of his business, it wouldn't change how he felt. It went beyond just the implications it held for his own reality. No matter where he was, when he couldn't just be indifferent. Naruto had a lot practice involving himself when others didn't want to include him. He had it down to an art form. They really should have known better. Okay, he said. Tell me one thing, and I promise not to bother you about anything for the rest of the night. He craned his head and peered over the book at Sakura. I will if I can, but you know I can't promise that without hearing what it is. Naruto scowled. Okay. What you were saying before. About the Jinchuriki. He forced the word out. It was still hard to comprehend that there was a term for it, like it was an experience that could be reduced to just a few syllables. Sakura stiffened and looked at him uncertainly. First of all, you don't have to apologize, 'cause I already knew that stuff. And I'm not mad you know about it either. Naruto sat up and draped an elbow over his drawn-up knees to look at her seriously. I mean, when I was out there. I don't know how it happened, but I'm really glad that everyone knows now and it's all okay. But what you said before, about all the Jinchuriki in the world being in trouble. There's only one person I've ever known like me, and he didn't have a lot of people willing to stand up for him. Naruto tried to swallow the heavy lump settling in his throat. He halfway didn't want to ask, because he had a very bad feeling about the answer. After all, she'd said most of them were already taken. A boy whose own people had already tried to dispose of him would have no chance, surely. You're talking about Gaara, Sakura said. Naruto nodded. What happened to him? Akatsuki went for him too, didn't they? Well. She glanced away, drumming her fingers in her lap. Just tell me if he's safe, Naruto pleaded. Safe? I don't think any of us are really safe. Sakura stopped fidgeting and folded her hands. She flashed an impish smile that was more reminiscent of her younger self. But he's alive and well. And you're wrong about there being nobody willing to stand up for him. He has plenty of people. His village accepts him now, too. Naruto stared at her disbelievingly. Then he grinned widely. Are you serious? Very. He's mellowed out a lot since meeting you. He even has fangirls in his village now. I've seen it. Sakura laughed. You're seriously not just messing with me right now? Naruto's voice rose suspiciously. Nope. I swear. Now I feel silly for worrying so much. Naruto laughed and lay back against his pillows, relieved. You had good reason to. Well, that's that. Remember what you said, no more pestering me for information tonight. Fine. Naruto grumbled. He still wanted to find out what she knew about Itachi's possibly dead, possibly not dead status. Whatever had happened between the Uchiha brothers or how reluctant Sasuke might be to divulge it, somebody had to know. Kakashi or Tsunade were the other obvious choices, so Naruto resolved to be patient and wait for them to come by. If not, there was always tomorrow. And the next day. And however long he had to be here. I'm not going to sleep, he informed Sakura petulantly. Not till Bachan comes back, or Kakashi-sensei tells us what they found. Like he said he would? Okay, you do that. I will. Good. It is good. Right. Naruto opened his book again and narrowed his eyes at her suspiciously over the edge of it, before shifting his gaze to page 1 with a resolute air. He was asleep by the next hour. The same day the boundaries of time were shattered, near sunset when Kakashi's investigation squad was on its way home, Kabuto raced through the woods like all the demons in hell were after him. The surrounding area was quiet save for the hollow thunk of the tree branches as he jumped from one to the next, and the blazingly orange horizon made the tree trunks ahead stand out in stark, inky black lines. He wore a voluminous burgundy cloak that had a hood decorated like a snake's head, and the visible lower half of his face was cracked into a manic grin. Though his physical form had gone through a lot of changing and warping recently, his movements were smooth and relaxed. Kabuto came to a halt as the air shimmered and swirled above a thick branch in front of him, materializing into Toby. The eerie plant-like one emerged from the tree's trunk. Ah, you found me, Kabuto said with a mock pout. What gave me away? The spores, the black half of Zetsu said. They don't just drain chakra. We use them to track you. Oh, that would explain it. They're for all kinds of things besides meddling with other people's experiments. I see. Zetsu recorded the whole thing. Toby said, barely contained rage seeping into his voice. Had I known you intended to betray us from the start, I would have killed you and gotten it over with. You misunderstand. It's just a side project. It has nothing to do with you, Kabuto said, giving them a slash of a smile from beneath his hood. His right arm twitched sporadically, and he held it with his other hand. Distantly, he knew something about the transformation hadn't gone right. But it was too late to turn back. What did you do? Toby snapped. Zetsu says you made the Kyuubi boy appear using some kind of summoning technique. To me, it looks like you had every intention of taking the bijou for yourself. And the thing you summoned was just a little brat. Explain. Black Zetsu added. It was definitely his chakra, bija and all. White Setsu said interestedly. So how did you bring him though time, Kabuto-san? I was going to tell you all about it. Kabuto took a step back on the branch, withdrawing deeper into his hood. You didn't have to interrupt my experiment and ruin everything. Now he's holed up in Konoha, and I'll have to fetch him the old-fashioned way. I'll help you with your war, like I promised. That hasn't changed. Just stay out of my way when it comes to this project. Tobi's one visible Sharingan eye narrowed behind the mask. I thought the agreement was that you would help in exchange for Sasuke. Things are different now. Kabuto bowed his head, his shoulders shaking in silent laughter. How so? Kabuto grimaced and squeezed his left arm harder. He gasped and pitched off balance, nearly throwing himself off the tree branch, but then slowly steadied, reaching out and digging his pale, scaly fingers into the tree trunk. When he looked back up, he was calm again. I apologize, he said. I'm not completely well at the moment. I am struggling with the fragment of Orochimaru-sama's consciousness embedded in mine. Let me explain it to you from the beginning, so you can see I have no intention of going back on our agreement. No secrets. By all means, Tobi said dryly. It was right after I first put the fragment of Orochimaru-sama into my system. Kabuto began. I found a research journal tucked away among the research that Orochimaru-sama did while trying to improve the Edo Tensei. The journal contained a theory of using a similar method to summon and bind someone here from another time, rather than from the world of the dead. It even came with a hypothetical seal formula for enacting it, though it was incomplete. Originally, I was only interested in it for what it revealed to me about the Edo Tensei. Comparing the formulas helped to increase my understanding of the underlying theory of summoning and binding human life energy, and how to bring it under the caster's personal control. I've never heard of such a thing. Black Setsu rasped. Kabuto continued on, undeterred. My mind kept drifting back to that incomplete jutsu. There were two principal problems with it. First, there was a large chance it would destroy the caster, since it requires a cost of life energy to use, the way a true reanimation does. In addition, the ability to create physical reality from imagination is rare, and it requires a high-level dojutsu, which I am sadly lacking in. You mean the Sharingan or Rinnegan? Tobi said. But why would that be necessary to summon someone already alive, when Edo Tensei doesn't? It is precisely because they are already alive. With Edo Tensei, it is a matter of moving them from one world to another. Orochimaru-sama's immortality technique was the same. He moved from one vessel to another. Ordinary chakra can also be split among any number of bodies, but one's own life energy is finite. Naruto-kun is already alive in this time. The only way to summon a living earlier version of him, rather than a mere echo or chakra construct, is to get that spark of life elsewhere. Then, a living sacrifice? Tobi guessed. He paused thoughtfully. You mean it is like Nagato's Shouten no Jutsu? Attaching someone's energy to a living body so it takes on the user's form and abilities? Very close. Kabuto pushed up his glasses. There's also the aspect of navigating the time stream so that the form you want appears. That part is actually much harder than reaching someone in the world of the dead, you know. There are a few other differences, but I won't bore you with the details right now. More importantly, you should know that I made all of these discoveries gradually, and I am being sincere when I say it wasn't my intention to take it this far. Kabuto held his hands out in front of him. Around the same time I solved the jutsu, that bit of Orochimaru-sama's consciousness was physically changing my appearance. I didn't think the two things were connected at first. I thought those were my choices alone, but now I believe I've been manipulated into doing all of this, including targeting Naruto-kun specifically. I do not know why. You want to get away with it by saying it wasn't really you? White Setsu snorted. Kabuto raised a hand to his head. He could feel the muscles of his face trying to move. I still have every intention of cooperating with you, as agreed. But this consciousness is a little stronger than I anticipated, and it seems to have other plans. This is ridiculous, Tobi said bluntly. You want us to believe Orochimaru isn't actually dead? Kabuto's face pulled itself into a smirk. Oh, he is very much alive. I am finding that out more and more. But mastering this fragment, and winning the fight for my body will make me even stronger. Orochimaru-sama's incredible force of will is truly awe-inspiring. All the more reason to pit myself against it, with my own existence on the line. Good for you, but if we can't rely on you, there's no point joining forces. Can't we just kill him? Black Setsu deadpanned. Kabuto stilled himself again, and raised his head to grin at them. Then how about we make a new arrangement? When Naruto awoke in a hospital bed, the first thing that crossed his mind was to wonder how badly he'd been hurt to end up here without remembering why. Then he saw Sai sleeping in the bed across from his, eerie pale skin reflecting the morning sun on his unconscious face, and it all came back. Damn it, I fell asleep. Naruto blurted aloud, throwing his covers off and sitting up. He didn't see anyone around besides Sai. He got up and pulled the curtains around his bed and dressed hurriedly. The clothes he'd been given were boring, but Sakura had done a good job choosing the right sizes, at least. With dismay, he realized that he didn't have any fresh underwear. Should he ask? No, that was where he was putting his foot down. He would not let Sakura choose his underwear for him. Ignoring the flush of embarrassment he felt rising to his face, Naruto quickly decided that would be a good excuse to leave. Now he just had to escape before anyone realized he was awake. He had just reached the door before someone opened it from the other side. It was Kakashi, smiling at him in the most irritatingly knowing way imaginable. You're in a hurry. Going somewhere? Oh, hi, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said in an overbright voice, backpedaling quickly. I was just going to go find out where they keep the donated clothes and stuff. Sakura-chan got some for me last night, but she forgot to get me any underwear. To be honest, I'm glad. I don't think a girl would be really good at picking underwear for a guy. You gotta have some room to move, you know what I'm saying? Well, I guess I'll see you, nope. A very unimpressed-looking Tsunade steered him by the shoulders when he tried to sidle into the hall. You can worry about that later. We have things to do, and we don't have all day. I would have thought you'd appreciate us coming to visit. Sure, if you're gonna tell me what's going on. Naruto stopped resisting and looked back and forth between Tsunade and Kakashi. Yeah, Kakashi said. I don't feel like repeating myself, though, so I'm going to wait until Sakura gets back. He settled against a nice comfortable patch of wall and pulled out Ika tactics. Naruto made a face. Sakura's checking on some other patients right now, so don't look so sour. Tsunade said. I need to give you a look over anyway. Have a seat. She indicated Naruto's hastily made bed. Naruto sat on the edge of the bed, growing uneasy. He hated anything medical. I don't have to take off my pants, do I? Wait, there's not going to be any needles, right? Tsunade sighed. The main thing is making sure your seal and chakras are okay. We didn't get a good look at the seal last time, so you'll need to take off your shirt. But the pants can stay. Relieved, Naruto peeled off his shirt and Tsunade pulled a small wheeled cart over to the side of the bed. It had a machine on it that he recognized from the regular checkups that were mandatory for active-duty shinobi. It resembled a lie detector machine, with arms that skated over paper according to what it measured, only it was a device that measured chakra. But they probably could use it to detect lies or test somebody's identity. Good. It would prove once and for all that he wasn't an imposter. Knowing the drill, Naruto extended his hands and Tsunade put a small, circular sensor on the center of each palm, where chakra was most easily manipulated and could be easily brought to the surface. Alright, Tsunade said, straightening up. Let's see what's going on with you. She flipped the on switch and the sensors began to hum and buzz, making his hands go numb. Naruto watched as the machine's little arms drifted back and forth in a bunch of squiggly lines that he'd never been able to comprehend. Suddenly, he felt very nervous. If this thing could prove his identity by coming out normal, the opposite was also true. What if there was really something wrong? Immediately he thought of how slippery his chakra had been to control yesterday. What would he do if it said he was an imposter? How could he stand up for his innocence against an impartial machine? Don't be so nervous, Tsunade said, frowning over the paper. This thing is supposed to measure your chakra flow in a state of rest, and you're gearing up like you're ready to jump out of the nearest window again. She raised an eyebrow. Sorry. Naruto took a deep breath. I just remembered something. When I first woke up here, I could hardly feel my chakra. I tried running up a tree, but I just fell off. It started coming back pretty quickly, but I still had a really hard time controlling it. It was like, He tried to think of how to describe it. It was like when we first started learning how to use chakra at the academy, and I had to concentrate really hard to get it to do what I wanted it to do. It got better though. Tsunade hummed and inspected the report printing out at the end of all the squiggly lines. She turned the machine off and tore the sheet from its perforated edge. Naruto put the sensors on the cart and flexed his hands, trying to get some feeling back into them. The seal looks completely normal from here, Kakashi commented. He had drifted over to them. What does the report say? There does seem to be something disrupting his chakra, but it's very faint. Like I said, it has gotten a lot better, Naruto offered. I barely even notice it now. I don't think there's anything surprising about that, all things considered. We have no idea how the time travel may have affected you. I think this is pointless, but everyone wants data on you, so. Tsunade picked up another sheet from the wheeled cart and held the two side by side. Fluctuations aside, your chakra's makeup matches your records at this age perfectly except. Her eyebrows scrunched together in confusion. What? What is it? Naruto leaned forward. There's an extra thread in your chakra's makeup that I've never seen. Tsunade put the two papers down and put her finger on the same line from each sheet. The old one's line was completely flat, but his new report spiked on the corresponding line. These bottom lines have to do with the chakra's composition. It shows what elements you can use, Kekkai Genkai, or anything else thrown into the mix, like the chakra you have sealed in you that isn't native to you. There are inhuman elements. See? The Kyuubi's line is right above that, so it proves that its presence is still there. But he doesn't account for this other line. Is that bad? Naruto stared at the paper, but it didn't help him understand it any better. Tsunade pursed her lips for a moment. Actually, I've seen this kind of pattern before on someone else. She blinked and her expression suddenly cleared. Anything to worry about? Kakashi asked, trying to sound casual, but watching very attentively. Yamato has this same line, except his is much stronger and more refined. More regular. It's the chakra type affiliated with the Mokuton Kekkai Genkai. Eh? Last time I checked, I don't have any Kekkai Genkai. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Kakashi asked. He'd actually fully lowered his book to stare at the report. I can only guess, Tsunade said. I wasn't there to observe it directly, but when Akatsuki attacked at the summit, one of them showed the ability to produce parasite-like spores that could absorb and disrupt chakra, and track someone they were put on. According to the report the Mizukage made, that power did seem to be based on the Shodai's Mokuton affinity. Maybe that would explain why it's showing up, and why your chakra was disrupted. Maybe some of those spores were put on you. Eh? Track, is that how they found me? I don't know, but I don't like that possibility. Tsunade thought for a moment, tapping her foot against the linoleum. If the disruption effect was caused by the spores, and it has already mostly worn off, we might assume that the spores are temporary and will soon be completely inert. We'll do another test later tonight to see if there's any change between now and then. In the meantime, you should take a shower. If we're really lucky, it'll be as simple as washing the spores off. I already dressed for the day and everything. Tsunade ignored him, busying herself with the machine. She rolled it back to its spot and came back with a small capsule with a needle on the end, which Naruto eyed warily. No way, I need a blood sample for the lab, she explained. We'll be able to do some more accurate tests on that. If the spores are in your blood, at least we'll know. And if everything else matches up, I can count it as proof of your identity when I meet with the other Kage. Naruto gave a puzzled frown. I'm not trying to agree with that old lady or anything, but why do you have to tell them about me? I thought all the Kage sort of didn't like each other. If you want answers, then you'll hold still. Tsunade raised a brow. Naruto reluctantly held out his arm. He winced and looked away, but didn't realize Tsunade was done until she pressed a square of gauze to his arm. He looked it down, but the small puncture healed itself within seconds. At least no one can say you aren't in good health. Tsunade frowned slightly at the vial in her hand. But she must have been satisfied with the amount of blood drawn, because she tucked the vial into her sleeve. Tell me about the Kage, Naruto said stubbornly. Fine. Since all the world's Jinchuriki have been threatened, the 5 great hidden villages have formed an alliance, Tsunade explained. Part of our agreement sharing anything we know about Akatsuki and what their plans might be. Something like this falls squarely in that category, regardless of what certain people might think. Cooperation is the only way the alliance has meaning. Naruto grinned. I like that. Am I gonna get to go with you to the meeting? No, Tsunade said bluntly, wiping the smile off his face. You're not leaving the village until the alliance decides what to do with you. Besides, the meeting is going to be held in Kumogakure in the Lightning Country, and it's best if the 2 versions of you, If there are two, stay far apart from one another. There hasn't been an answer from Guy and the others yet, and I don't like not knowing how things stand. I might go to investigate myself if there still hasn't been an answer by the time I get to Kumo. I'm leaving tomorrow, and I should only be gone a few days since we will be taking the direct route. Until I get back, you will have to stay here in the hospital with Sai. Bachan, how could you do this to me? Naruto was dismayed. You know I can't stand being cooped up in the hospital, and this time, I'm not hurt or sick or anything. If an injury is all you need to get you to stay here. Tsunade began threateningly, cracking her knuckles. No, that's fine, he said hurriedly. Good. I promise when I come back, we'll have worked things out. And you won't be alone either. If you have to be sent somewhere, I'll send you with people that you know. She patted his knee and stood, walking to the door. The floor's yours, Kakashi. I'll send Sakura along soon. Chapter 8 Present. At Tsunade's prompting, Kakashi put his book away and knelt beside Naruto. He brought up a hand and touched his glowing fingertips lightly to the Kyuubi's seal. It reappeared at the touch. It's all okay, right? Naruto asked. He couldn't tell anything from the small visible patch of Kakashi's face. It's exactly how it was before, Kakashi said, pulling his hand back. Really, I think that's proof enough. It would be nearly impossible to replicate your seal, especially as it was 4 years ago. It's different now. Only a few people know it was reset, and how, and why. Let me guess, you can't tell me that either? Naruto grumbled, pulling his shirt back on. To his surprise, Kakashi seemed to be genuinely considering it. His brow furrowed thoughtfully. Naruto sensed weakness. If only a few people know anyway, it doesn't matter if you tell me. Come on, Kakashi-sensei. I'll keep my mouth shut about it, I promise. It's my seal, so I have a right to know. Yeah, I think you do, Kakashi said. Now that you've seen what's happened to the village, I bet you've decided to change history the moment you get a chance, regardless of what any of us say, using any means necessary. Am I right? Naruto jutted out his lower lip. Wouldn't you do the same thing? I'm not saying I blame you. It's too late to hope nothing will change when you go back. Even if you tried to keep it the same, you probably couldn't. So it might be good to warn you about that incident, at least. Naruto nodded, not daring to speak lest Kakashi change his mind. Your seal is designed so the Kyuubi's chakra slowly merges with yours over time. It also lets you use its power in life-threatening situations. You've seen how powerful it can be. Yeah. I get why Akatsuki would want to steal it. But your version of the seal will start to weaken very soon. The more you use that power, the more quickly the seal will corrode, so you have to be careful. There's no telling what would change if it happened too early. If what happened? The seal was close to breaking, Kakashi said quietly. It was weakening anyway. But when you were fighting against pain, your anger and hurt nearly broke it entirely. The Kyuubi was taking over to a point where you couldn't stop it. I didn't get to see it, but they say your body was completely replaced with its form. It was just one step away from being released, and if it had been, you probably would have died, and the Kyuubi would be out in the world. Naruto's throat constricted tightly. He remembered vividly how scary it had been to see Gaara transform almost entirely into his beast's form. That visceral, wild state was something he never wanted to experience. Fortunately, there was a fail-safe. Kakashi continued. The seal was made to reset itself if it was about to break. But if you're too reckless and draw on the Kyuubi's power too much, it will try to control you. Even with the fail-safe, you shouldn't rely on that power until you find a safer way to use it. The door to the hospital room opened loudly and Sakura came in. Naruto looked away from her and Kakashi stood to pull up a couple of chairs. Sit. I've got some things to go over with the two of you, he said, taking a seat himself and looking relaxed, as if they hadn't just been interrupted. Are you really going to tell us what you found out in the investigation? We thought it was going to stay a secret. Sakura took a seat and glanced at Naruto. I don't think that's a good idea anymore. I have to follow Tsunade-sama's orders, which are partly a reflection of what the elders, heads, and jounin want. But I'll tell you whatever I can get away with. Kakashi leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees and lacing his fingers together. We retraced Naruto's steps to a small farming settlement north of here. Akatsuki wasn't there, but they definitely were before. We don't know exactly why, but the villagers were all detained in their homes and killed. Sakura's eyes widened and she glanced at Naruto again. Resolved to hearing out the worst, he didn't say anything, but he clenched his fists. It felt like a clawed hand was squeezing his heart. Kakashi lowered his gaze. What's worse, the bodies resembled those killed by Pain's human path absorption soul technique. The autopsy confirmed that. The evidence points towards something that should be impossible. Those villagers were killed by Pain's technique. Wasn't he the one who, I thought you guys said he was dead? Naruto blurted. He is. The Edo Tensei. Sakura said grimly. Kakashi nodded. Since a reanimated Itachi showed up in the village, there is a good chance Pain was also brought back with the Edo Tensei. Someone is going around summoning dead Akatsuki members to use as their very dangerous puppets. What is it? This Edo Tensei thing? Naruto asked, determined to be on the same page as everyone else. A technique that was invented by the Nidaime Hokage. Sakura explained. It was stolen and perfected by Orochimaru. It allows the user to summon someone from the dead into an immortal body and control them like pawns. That was how Orochimaru managed to kill the Sandaime. She hesitated, as if suddenly unsure whether he knew about the Sandaime's death. Naruto gave a nod, and she looked relieved. So basically, Orochimaru is behind this. Naruto said darkly. Orochimaru was also defeated. Kakashi said. But we know his apprentice Kabuto has taken up his mantle. We also know Kabuto recently joined forces with what remains of Akatsuki. He's definitely the most suspicious looking in this case. If he really has learned how to use Edo Tensei, the allied shinobi force will need to step up their plans. And if he has something to do with you being here, that's a whole other can of worms. Naruto sat for a moment, letting all this information sink in. I can't believe Kabuto made it longer than Orochimaru, he said finally. He just seemed like a random lackey to me, a jerk and everything, yeah, but still. What happened to Orochimaru? He was killed by Sasuke, Kakashi said. Naruto's mouth fell open. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura said sharply. But, no way. Naruto looked back and forth between the two of them. I saw Orochimaru fight against Tsunade-chan and Ero-sennin at the same time. And you say that's Sasuke, and why? Wait, was it like something to do with Itachi or something? Kakashi stared at him. You have no idea whatsoever why he wouldn't like Orochimaru? I thought you would at least remember the Forest of Death. That was, what, just a couple of months ago for you. Kakashi-sensei. Sakura hissed. Naruto said, glancing at Sakura. Obviously I remember Orochimaru attacking us. How could I forget something like that? And Sakura-chan had to stand guard over us because we both got knocked out. He scared everybody. I don't get what you're trying to hint at. Huh. What's the big deal anyway, Sakura-chan? Naruto asked Sakura, who was still looking at Kakashi as if she wanted to shut him up quickly and violently. I don't care if Sasuke killed Orochimaru. I mean, it's hard to believe he could, but I already heard that he killed Itachi. It's a weird idea to get used to, that's all. Sakura. I understand how you feel, but… Kakashi started. What is it? Naruto said impatiently. You're both acting really weird. Look, even if something happened that I don't know about that made Sasuke want to kill Orochimaru, seriously, who cares? It's not like I like Orochimaru. Unless… I do? Oh my god, no. And no. Don't tell me. He's secretly my father or something? He suddenly panicked. Kakashi choked and laughed louder than Naruto had ever heard him laugh before. When you're acting like it's something really terrible. Naruto started defensively. You dork. Sakura sighed. It's not that. Geez. It's just… She paused, struggling for words. Kakashi watched her face contort for a moment before giving a shrug and a sigh. She's just afraid that hearing about how powerful Sasuke's grown will get you down, Naruto. We all know how much you compete against one another. Yeah, Naruto said slowly. But it's not like I didn't expect Sasuke to be really powerful by now. I only care whether my future self can keep up with him or not. I mean, Orochimaru is like, whoa. But I faced that Pain guy who destroyed the village, so it's pretty much even, right? Naruto frowned when they just looked at each other instead of answering. You won't tell me how strong I am. He pointed at Sakura accusingly. I'm really weak then, is that it? That's the real reason why I'm still a genin, isn't it? Sakura winced. Of course not, Kakashi said. Sakura, before this gets out of hand, I really think we should just forget it, It doesn't matter, Sakura said roughly. Right now, we need to worry about Kabuto and the revived Akatsuki. So, was that all you had to tell us about them? Kakashi looked at her doubtfully, and Naruto scowled deeply at the ungraceful change of subject. Pretty much, Kakashi said. Tsunade-sama will be reporting all this to the allied shinobi force, so whatever happens next depends on what the 5 Kage decide. We just have to wait and stay alert. Naruto kept scowling, but he played along. If we catch Kabuto, we can get him to send me back, right? Maybe, but there's no point getting ahead of ourselves. We just have to wait, Kakashi said. Naruto narrowed his eyes. He was now certain something had happened to change his older self's relationship with his peers. He just couldn't figure out what it was, whether or not it was something to do with Sasuke, or Pain's attack on the village. Everyone knew about the Kyuubi, but fake respect out of fear felt completely different from real respect, so it wasn't that. Or was it, and his older self was sent into hiding? If he was strong enough to take on someone like Pain, why whisk him off somewhere? And why would his older self allow it? It already rankled bad enough at his age, even when he knew he couldn't match the power of the enemies they were currently facing. Naruto sat and listened to them speculate on Akatsuki, but he was far from letting the topic go. He was more sure than ever there was something to find. It didn't matter if other people were hell-bent on sparing his feelings, or thought they were hiding things for his own good. All it did was firm his resolve. Tswanda left to attend a meeting with the other Kage. 3 days in the hospital under Anbu guard was not the most pleasant of experiences. But there were a few highlights, and Naruto kept his eyes and ears open for clues the entire time. He and Sai had visitors every day. After Konohamaru found out who the other genin had been, he came by immediately, showed off his improved Oiroku no Jutsu with gusto, and plotted ways to bust Naruto out of the hospital. He was delighted to be around a version of his mentor that was the same age as him, and more fun, since they were nearly identical in size, power, and temperament. They were the only ones who found it so fun, though. It just made everyone else extremely nervous. It wasn't long before Sakura was the only medic brave enough to check on Sai when the two self-proclaimed future Hokage got together. Sakura also checked Naruto's chakra at the end of each day. The scans soon showed the disruption of his chakra flow was completely gone, but the plant-like element remained. She theorized it was just residue from the spores in his system and should fade soon as well, but they'd have to get Tsunade's opinion when she returned. They wondered what the 5 Kage would say or do about the strange situation once it got out. Maybe someone within the alliance would figure out how to send Naruto back home, but for all his hopes and plans to change the past, he didn't consider it might be moving on without him. On the second day of his confinement, Naruto finally found something about his older self. It was after a failed breakout attempt co-directed by the Konohamaru Corps. The team was sent home with a stern warning by the NBU, and Naruto was left with nothing to do. He started reading Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi, but it hadn't caught his attention the way he hoped. He was halfway through the lengthy prologue, which waxed poetic about the state of the shinobi world in flowery language and seemed, frankly, boring to him. He knew there had to be something special about it, but he didn't feel like slogging through the rest at the moment. So Naruto went flipping through Sai's sketchpad, for lack of anything better to do. Most of the sketches and drawings were abstract or still life, but then he found the missing pieces to his future team. It was a rough, quick pencil sketch done landscape-wise, and it was split into 4 panels with faint lines, to evenly dividing each portrait. Naruto's heart leapt when he realized he was looking at the older Team 7, each of the now 4 members standing in a panel with their hands linked together. He stared at the drawing for a long time, grinning. His eyes roved over each face eagerly. Most of the sketch looked unfinished, but all their faces were fully realized, as if Sai took special care to get their expressions right. Naruto's older self was grinning right back at him, and Sasuke was on his right, looking peaceful. Sai and Sakura stood at the ends. All 4 of them looked happy. The young adult grinning brilliantly between the whisker marks on his face didn't look like someone suffering under the weight of Akatsuki. Nor did he look monstrously powerful or awe-inspiring, but Naruto liked the feeling it gave him. It was like his older self was laughing at him for worrying. Sasuke also looked happy, though it was a muted happiness compared to his neighbor, and it suited him even though Naruto had never seen him look like that in real life. Was it because he'd finally gotten his wish? When would he get to meet the real thing? What was Sasuke doing right now? Naruto could feel from the simple sketch that Sai really cared about his team, which made the strange boy go up in his estimation. He eagerly flipped through the rest of the sketchbook to see if there were any more portraits of the team, but there were none. Later, he asked Sakura to tell him more about Sai, since he still didn't really understand him. You want to know about Sai? Sakura asked, looking up from changing size 4. What brought that on? Nothing really. I guess I'm just wondering what Root is, and what Sai has to do with it, and why Kakashi-sensei thought that would be a good disguise for me. Everyone seems to know about it but me. Sakura just hummed skeptically and turned back to her work. He's in here because he took the attack meant for me. Naruto tried to keep the frustration from his voice, but failed. I don't care if he's not supposed to be my friend yet. It's too late for that, because he already is. And I want to be able to help him when he wakes up. Sakura gave him a small smile. It's kind of funny. You didn't get along at all when you first met. If you make friends with him now, you might be disappointed if you make it back to the past. You'll have to make friends with someone you can't stand. I'm used to that. Naruto shrugged. So? Sakura hesitated, resting her hands on the bed rail and looking down at Sai. I don't suppose it could hurt anything. Even if you make it back, you probably won't see him before the time we originally met anyway. Yeah, okay, start with that. How come we never met before, even though he's the same age as us, you, whatever? He wasn't at the academy with us, was he? Sakura shook her head. It's not all that complicated, really. He wasn't in our class because he was in Root. Root was a secret training division of the ANBU. Most of the kids in it were unclaimed or unwanted, and they went through some pretty terrible training in order to stunt their emotions. The theory behind it was that a lack of emotions made for a better shinobi. Naruto's eyes widened in realization and horror. Sakura continued. The man who founded it kept it up in secret after Sandaime-sama ordered that it be shut down. It was unknown to almost everyone. It wasn't until recently, when the founder died, that it was really stopped. Even that is sad. Many of them have lost their purpose and don't know what to do with their lives. They were bound to Root in a lot of ways. Some of them even followed their old master in death. So who was? Someone you're better off staying away from, she said sharply. If all the Hokage from the Sandaime to the Godaime couldn't sniff him out and stop him, there's nothing you can do. It all worked out, mostly. I wonder if that's the reason Sai didn't want to tell me about Root. Naruto mumbled. He doesn't think I could help him either. Sakura rested a hand on his arm. Sai knows you, and he knows Root. I'd say he's the best judge of that. Besides, he just wants to put it behind him. When is he going to wake up? Could be any time. Sakura moved to feel Sai's forehead, and her hands glowed green for a moment. The mental damage was minimal, and Tsunade-sama was able to treat it right away. It was good we were able to get him here so quickly. It's really just a matter of his body catching up, and he's been out for 2 days already. I would say another day at most, as long as he's stable like this. I wonder what he saw. Don't worry, Sakura assured him. I think there are only a couple of things that could really shake Sai, and since the Tsukuyumi was meant for you, I doubt any of those came up. Don't worry, Sai had told him that too. If Kabuto was commanding Itachi, does that mean Kabuto made up whatever happened in the attack? How does that work? How should I know? Either way, you're probably really lucky it missed, Sakura said darkly. Sai finally woke up on the 3rd day, at a time when the room was particularly crowded and noisy. Team Guy, minus Guy, had come to visit him and Naruto, and most of the commotion came from Lee eagerly challenging Naruto to a battle right in the hospital room after gushing over Naruto's reclaimed youth. Kakashi was also there, looking as if he wondered how he'd ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Niji, Tenten, and Sakura were respectively exasperated, amused, and irritated. This is a hospital room, not a playground. Sakura roared as Lee hopped from one foot to another and tossed out a few warm-up kicks, nearly knocking over a partition screen. Lee, Tenten said exasperatedly. Sakura's right. You can challenge whoever you want later. Right now, we need to consider Sai-san. Ah, you are right. Lee stopped kicking at the air and bowed his head apologetically. Next time then, Naruto-kun. It looks like you bounced back from your injuries, Naruto said excitedly. The last time I saw you, you were hurt pretty bad. That is all just a memory now, thanks to Tsunade-sama and Gai-sensei, Lee said. It's great to see all of you. Naruto looked over the whole of Team Gai. Bushy brow, I think you've changed the least out of anyone I've met so far. How are the rest of you getting along? Keeping busy, as usual, Tenten said. You know how it goes. Never a dull moment with this team. And the last time I saw you, you were trying to beat me up. Naruto joked to Neji. Neji smiled faintly. I hope you don't mind me saying that I remember it fondly. Just as long as you're not holding any grudges. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. I guess you've probably figured out by now how I won. I didn't fully understand it at the time, myself. Neji shrugged. It doesn't matter. I deserve to lose for underestimating you, even if I was unaware of your power. Besides, it was the most profitable loss I've ever had. Since I barely won then, I'd probably get completely thrashed against you now. Same with Bushibrow. Could be fun to try, though. Indeed. Lee got into another fighting pose. A quiet groan made them all stop and look toward the hospital bed. Sai's eyes opened slowly and he stared confusedly at all of them. Sai-kun. Sai. They gathered around him and Sakura said, Give him a little space. Before bending into his line of sight. Sakura. He said weakly. His eyes drifted to her side. Naruto. Then he looked around the room. There are a lot of people here. Not for long. Sakura said. I'm sorry, but do you think you guys could come back later? It's probably best if there aren't so many visitors at one time, so it isn't too overwhelming for him. Of course. We'll let his team visit first. Neji said. Come on, Lee Tenten. And they left. Good. Kakashi sighed. They're overwhelming at the best of times even without Guy, thanks to that mini-clone of his. Nice timing, Sai. How are you feeling? Sakura asked. She drew a small flashlight from her pouch and used it to peer into each of his eyes. I'm fine, I think. Sai blinked when she put the flashlight away and tried to sit up. Sakura helped him by tucking some pillows behind his back. I'm pretty hungry and thirsty, though. Ah, I remember that. Hope you like soup, Kakashi said lightly. That's all they let me have for a while after I woke up from a Tsukuyami-induced coma. Now that you're awake, your recovery should be relatively quick. Sakura said briskly. You'll need a little more rest until you get your full strength back, though. What was it? What did you see? Naruto ignored the sharp look Sakura threw at him. Sai's gaze settled on him. Naruto saw with a rush of relief that his eyes weren't dull or uncomprehending this time, like he feared they would be. But there was something unreadable there. I can't, he said softly. Why? Is it just something else I'm not supposed to know, or? It occurred to him too late that he might be acting extremely tactlessly. Or maybe you don't want to talk about it. Sai shook his head. What I saw was not reality, so in that sense it wouldn't matter. But that attack had been molded for you, to destroy you. It would not be kind to tell you what I saw. Naruto leaned back. He believed him without question. Are you sure you're all right? I'm fine. Illusions are just that. It will never happen. Sai looked at Sakura, whose mouth hardened into a thin line. What won't? Naruto, why don't you go down to the cafeteria and find some food that's not too solid for Sai to eat? Sakura said. Oh no! Naruto pointed accusingly from her to Kakashi. You guys are going to talk behind my back again. Naruto, go, Kakashi said, a warning in his voice. Don't make me summon Bull to drag you down there. Grumbling, Naruto went out into the hall and slammed the door behind him. He had only given up so quickly in order to listen at the door, but then he saw that there was an ANBU guard posted right outside of it, ruining his plan. I wonder if the ANBU know they're supposed to be guarding me, not hospital doors, he said petulantly, and loudly, to himself. Well, see you later, I'm gonna go get myself kidnapped now. The large-bore-masked ANBU was completely unmoved by this declaration, and Naruto walked down to the cafeteria muttering expletives under his breath the entire way. Inside the room, they were all silent for a while. Kakashi crossed his arms. Sai stared across at the opposite wall, frowning thoughtfully. How bad was it? Sakura prompted. Bad? Sai said after a moment. It was not easy to go through, but it was easier to stay grounded, to keep my head clear when I thought about Naruto being there instead of me, and what it could have done to him. Tell us about it if you can. Kakashi moved to stand at his bedside. Unless it would be better to wait. Sakura added quickly. Don't force it. No. The genjutsu itself didn't bother me. It was knowing who it was for. Sai took a deep breath and shuddered slightly, and let the breath out again. I saw Sasuke. He killed everyone in Konoha one by one. He kept saying that it was all because Naruto was too weak to stop him. Sakura buried her face in her hands and Kakashi clenched the guardrail. That's the older Naruto's fear, Kakashi said. The younger one wouldn't get the full meaning of it. Do you really think it wouldn't affect him just as much? Sai asked placidly. I think that was a really close one, Kakashi said. I think we need to tell him the truth about Sasuke now, before someone else does. No, Sakura said fiercely. Hearing about it first from the enemy, or even one of the other villages, particularly Kumo, would be doing him a disservice. Kakashi insisted. Tsunade-sama is going to send him to one of our allies. If anyone says something to him, you know he would stand up for Sasuke first and ask questions later. Sakura shook her head. It will hurt no matter what. It'll hurt even if he makes it back without knowing, because he'll have to experience it the same way again. But right now, for the very last time, he doesn't have that burden hanging over him. For once in my life I have the chance to protect him from that burden, instead of. Her breath caught. She grimaced and looked down. I'm not in a rush to see that weight put on him again, Kakashi-sensei, Sai said quietly. I was inclined to agree with you before, but during those days I spent in the Tsukuyumi, and the days I spent afterward dreaming about it, all I could think about was how glad it was me and not him. Perhaps I'm not the best judge right now, since I am still recovering. But I'm not yet ready to throw him into that hell either, when I know he will have to live in it every day of his life afterward. We have to undo this as quickly as we can, Sakura said. And if it can't be undone? Kakashi said. And what if the Naruto of our time is gone? Yamato Taisha and the others would have said something if he was gone, Sakura said in a low voice. Kakashi shrugged and let it drop. He didn't exactly disagree with them. If he could have it his way, the entire fiasco with Sasuke would have never even happened to begin with. But it had happened, and it would happen, even if Naruto made it home without ever knowing. Privately, he thought getting it out of the way might actually save Naruto a few years of pain and uncertainty. He sighed. I guess we'll see how it goes. Chapter 9 passed. Team 7 was getting out of balance, and Kakashi knew it. Some might argue it was doomed from the start. But there had been a moment before the exams when everything seemed to be going well. The spark he'd seen in them had grown. They finally felt on track. Then Orochimaru disrupted everything. He planted a seed of discontent that just might tear the team apart if something wasn't done very soon. So the day after Tsunade's inauguration, Kakashi finished his solo mission in record time and called a team meeting for the very next morning. He had no solid plan yet for re-establishing the team's camaraderie, but some group training would be a start. Kakashi arrived at the designated training ground. He looked up from his book and frowned. Any hope that they'd bonded while he was gone flew away the moment he observed the scene in front of him. Sasuke was sitting underneath a tree, arms crossed and face like a steel door, glaring in the other direction. Sakura sat near him, but not so near it would force him to move. When she saw Kakashi, she stood up, dusting grass off her shorts. The third and loudest member of his team was nowhere to be seen, which was somehow the most conspicuous part of all of it. Kakashi-sensei, you're late, Sakura said, though without the indignation she usually put into it. She looked pleadingly at him, and then looked back at Sasuke. Kakashi sighed. Rather than reconnecting with one another, their rapport seemed even worse than before. He had only been gone for a day and a night. Had they managed to have a huge falling out while he was gone? He looked at Sasuke, who stoically ignored him. Even though Tsunade had deemed Sasuke physically fit enough to be released from the hospital, she had suspended Team 7 from doing missions until Kakashi could evaluate their readiness to return to action. Which is what he planned to do today. The problem was, it would be difficult to assess his team with only 1.5 of his team members present. Sasuke honestly didn't look entirely there. Yo, he said with practiced laziness. Where's Naruto? You three didn't have a fight, did you? No, sensei, Sakura said, sounding confused. I haven't seen Naruto since we said goodbye after Tsunade-sama's inauguration. Have you, Sasuke-kun? No, Sasuke said shortly. Knowing him, he probably mistook the place. Or the day. Kakashi closed his book and slowly tucked it into his back pouch. Neither of you saw him yesterday at all? Even though all three of you had the day off? Sakura crossed her arms. It is kind of strange. He's an idiot sometimes, but I don't think he's ever been later than you for one of our meetings, right, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi considered. I'll go check at his house. If it takes me longer than half an hour for me to drag him back here, you're both dismissed, but expect to hear from me again sometime today. Okay, Sakura said, while Sasuke gave an eloquent snort. Kakashi hesitated, wondered for half a second if it would be better just to wait, but then turned away from the training ground set off toward Naruto's apartment. He took to the rooftops, brows knotted together in consternation. It really wasn't like the knucklehead to skip a team meeting, especially since it had been so long. Kakashi knew better than anyone how eager Naruto was to get back to doing missions. In a matter of minutes he was at Naruto's front door, tapping languidly. He jabbed at the doorbell a couple of times, hearing it buzz within the apartment. He waited a few minutes, but there was no response. Okay then. Kakashi was seriously starting to doubt his student was at home, but he decided to go check at the bedroom window anyway. If something had happened he didn't know about, it was possible Naruto could be refusing to answer the door out of sheer stubbornness. Kakashi crawled around the side of the building to the balcony off Naruto's room and peered into the bedroom window, only to find, to his slight confusion, that Naruto was simply laying in bed. He was sprawled out with half of his bedcovers in the floor in his usual chaotic way, but his face was relaxed and blank. He wasn't snoring or twitching or generally being the bundle of energy that he was at all times, even while sleeping. Was he sick? Naruto. Kakashi slid the window open and hopped down to the floor. Rise and shine. We have work to do. Nothing. Even when Kakashi closed the window with a snap and kicked the bedcovers the rest of the way off him, Naruto didn't wake. Not a twitch, not a grumble. His eyes didn't even move under his eyelids. Naruto? Kakashi called, a tinge of worry slipping into his voice. Was this some kind of prank? But even he knew that this wasn't the kind of pranking Naruto liked to do. He didn't make others worry for his safety intentionally. He cherished the care of others too much to abuse it like that. Naruto! Kakashi said a bit more forcefully, shaking his shoulder. Naruto's head rolled from one side to the other, but his expression didn't shift in the slightest. He couldn't fake this level of insensibility if he tried, Kakashi realized. Something was very wrong. He felt Naruto's forehead and the sides of his face. His cheeks weren't overheated or flushed with fever. They were icy cold. No! The words slipped from Kakashi before he even realized it. It felt like all the air in the room had suddenly vanished, constricting his chest tightly, making it difficult to breathe. He leaned to poise his ear over Naruto's face. He couldn't hear him breathing. He pressed his ear over Naruto's heart. He couldn't hear it beating. Kakashi's thoughts were running all over one another, but he forced himself to try to calm down and block out everything and listen with all of his might. Nothing. No, there was something. It was very faint, but he thought he could hear a heartbeat. It lobbed frighteningly slowly. But Naruto was alive. Barely. Without wasting any more time, Kakashi scooped up his student's small body and left via the nearest exit, the window. He wasn't going to the hospital. Protocol be damned, he would see the newly instated Godame Hokage right now, and no one was going to get in his way. Tsunade looked up sharply when someone barged into her office without knocking, half prepared to give them a tongue lashing, but the words died in her throat when she saw the usually unruffled Kakashi out of breath, desperation clear even on his masked face. Kakashi, what? She stood and walked around her desk toward him. Her eyes jumped to the preteen gathered in his arms, and she felt her stomach drop down to her shoes. Naruto looked so pale. Still. Dead. Tsunade could feel the room around her getting farther away. Everything felt strange and distant. She dimly saw a pair of trembling hands that looked like her own touch the icy skin of his face, tracing the whisker marks. She was cursing herself, but numbly, somewhere far in the back of her mind. She should never have given him the necklace. Never should have formed an attachment to another all-too-mortal being. How stupid, to be lured into a false sense of security again. He's alive, Tsunade-sama, Kakashi said urgently, pulling her back to reality. Please, you have to do something, or... Suddenly Tsunade could feel the ground underneath her feet again. If there was a chance, she would not fail. Not this time. She put her glowing palms over Naruto's chest and discovered the weak, sluggish heartbeat. She moved her hands over him, checking the other organs and his chakra system. There is no physical damage, she said in a clipped, trembling voice. but his chakra system is almost entirely empty. His levels are so dangerously low that he can't wake. He barely has enough energy to keep his vital organs functioning. And I can't feel the Kyuubi at all. Kakashi didn't look surprised. No doubt he'd already come to his own conclusions. Tsunade forced herself to continue. How long has he been like this? I don't know. The last time Sakura and Sasuke saw him was the night before last. It could be over 24 hours. We're taking him to the hospital. Tsunade turned around to her assistant, who was watching with widened eyes. Shizen! Find out where Jiraiya is. Send him a message to report back here immediately. I want to know what he's found about Akatsuki's movements. Kakashi, follow me. Kakashi followed after her silently. The unspoken hung heavily in the air between them. When they made it to the hospital, Kakashi laid Naruto gently down on the hospital bed and backed up as Tsunade barked orders at the several nurses that were milling around. No one told him to leave, so he faded quietly into the background. It was highly improbable that a guard was necessary at this point. If someone had managed to extract the bijou from Naruto, never mind how, that was a question that would come later. They most likely didn't care whether he lived or died. Without the Kyuubi, he had no political or military value. Yet Kakashi stayed anyway, suspended in a state of morbid fascination as the medic Nin fought to save his student's life. He knew, and Tsunade knew, that no one in history had ever survived having their tailed beasts removed from them. Ever. Yet they had to try, even if it was delaying the inevitable. This was the first time that someone in his life had died slowly enough for him to contemplate the process. Kakashi couldn't say if that was an improvement. He lost track of exactly how much time passed, but it was enough for several ANBU to come looking for Tsunade, who had, after all, skipped out on her work without warning. After berating the first two mercilessly for interrupting her, she posted them outside of the hospital door to tell others that there was a medical emergency, and she was not to be disturbed. Kakashi didn't move from his position leaning on the wall until all the other medical personnel were allowed to leave and Tsunade flopped down into a bedside chair. He came forward and stood there silently, waiting for the verdict. Naruto had on a breathing mask and was hooked up to so many other machines that he couldn't figure out what all of them were for. But the steady sound of his pulse on the heart monitor was reassuring. He is stable, Tsunade said tiredly, reading Kakashi's silence. There is no telling when or even if he'll regain consciousness, but his life isn't in danger as long as his body keeps doing its job. Him surviving this long without any support at all is, frankly, miraculous. What exactly is wrong with him? Tsunade got out of her chair heavily. Being perfectly honest, the Kyuubi is gone, and all but the bare minimum of Naruto's life energy is gone with it. Having the tailed beast taken, he should be dead already, but it seems he has his mother's resilience. Kakashi narrowed his eye. It had to be Akatsuki. Most likely. I hope Jiraiya will help us piece together what happened. He's supposed to be monitoring their movements right now. To think that they could get into the village and take the bijou undetected. What are the chances that Naruto will survive? Kakashi asked, ignoring the vice-like squeezing in his chest. Tsunade closed her eyes briefly before answering. The life support will not work indefinitely, and he will not be able to simply recover. His body is essentially an empty shell. The only thing that might work is to recover the Kyuubi and reseal it inside of him. Then we have to take the offensive against Akatsuki as soon as possible. Yes, Tsunade said, low burning fury creeping into her tone. She turned and marched toward the door. Now that I've done all I can do here, it is time to get back to work. She paused with her hand on the door handle and said softly, You should inform the rest of your team. Kakashi stood in the hospital room a while after Tsunade left. What was he supposed to tell them? For one thing, it was still illegal to reveal Naruto's status as a Jinchuriki to the younger generation. He didn't know if Tsunade intended on lifting that ban now. It was probably too early to even speculate. First they had to find out what happened, and how. For now, he supposed Team 7 would just have to deal with partial information. The whole time, Kakashi kept looking at Naruto's unnaturally still form on the hospital bed, covered with support and monitoring devices. The only sign he was still alive was the slow but rhythmic beeps from the heart monitor. Kakashi rested a hand on top of Naruto's head briefly, ruffling his student's blonde hair, before turning to leave. Kakashi blinked upon stepping out of the hospital's front doors. It was later in the evening than he thought, and the sky was already dark. It had taken a while to get Naruto to a point where his life wasn't in danger. For now. Everything was business as usual in town as Kakashi loped down the street, though he could still feel the bright atmosphere of optimism left over from the instating of a new Hokage. There were more people out than usual, meeting with each other and chatting over food. No one was yet aware that the village might have been infiltrated and their bijou stolen. The peace that they had gained after Orochimaru's attack could be shattered at any moment if the perpetrators decided to unleash the Kyuubi on the village once again. If that happened now, while their forces were still spread thin trying to keep up with missions, it could very well be a disaster worse than the one that had ended the Yandame's life. When Kakashi reached the place where he told his team to meet, no one was there. Not surprising, considering he told them to go home. He hadn't really expected them to be there. Maybe he was just stalling, trying to formulate what to say. He considered going to the memorial tablet to mull things over a bit longer, then decided against it. It wouldn't do to conflate the past and present any more than he already had. It was hard not to, with the persistent image of his young student laying there as if dead. Kakashi started toward the nearest house, the Harino residence. He only had to tap on the door a couple of times before Harino Mabuki opened the door, warm light from inside falling out onto the doorstep. "Oh, Kakashi-san! Sakura had just about given up on you." "Sakura!" she called back into the house. "I said I'll do it in a minute, Mom!" Sakura yelled back from somewhere upstairs. Mabuki gave an aggravated sigh and turned around fully to call up the stairs. "Not that, you silly girl! Kakashi-san is here!" "Eh? Hey! Sorry I'm so late," Kakashi said, scratching the back of his head. "This shouldn't take long." Sakura came thumping down the stairs, and Mabuki left the front step to let her pass by. Sakura stepped out onto the porch and closed the front door most of the way behind her. Kakashi still didn't know exactly how he was going to explain everything, so it was just as well that Sakura spoke up first. "Kakashi-sensei! Where have you been? We waited for you a while, then Sasuke-kun said he was going to go train since we weren't getting a mission. I went by Naruto's apartment, too, but neither of you were there." "Right," Kakashi said, shifting his weight and putting his hands in his pockets. "Sakura, something's happened to Naruto. He's in the hospital now. It may be a while before our team is returned to active duty." "Huh?" Sakura looked extremely confused for a moment, but then her pink brows scrunched together. "Was it Uchiha Itachi again? After Sasuke-kun just got out of the hospital?" "No, well, we don't know," Kakashi amended. For all they knew, it was Itachi. Jiraiya had already thwarted one kidnapping attempt by him. "I found Naruto unconscious in his own bed. But so far, there have been no eyewitnesses to help us determine who attacked him, or when. None of the neighbors saw or heard anything unusual, and the barrier corps didn't detect any intruders entering or leaving the village. But he'll be okay in a few days, won't he? Just like with Sasuke-kun?" Sakura frowned up at him. He could see the gears in her mind working, trying to figure out why an attack like this would fall on Naruto, of all people. Kakashi sighed. He wanted to assure her that Naruto would be back to normal in no time, but that was a weak lie that would fall apart the moment they saw how many machines he was hooked up to. He at least had to be upfront about that. "No, Sakura. It's something much more serious than that. I hate to say it, but there's a very real chance he might never wake up." Even saying it like that was putting it mildly. Naruto wouldn't wake up, not until the bijou was returned to him. That was an irreversible fact. "Huh!" Sakura was clearly thrown. "But wait, Kakashi-sensei. What are you talking about? He was perfectly fine just a couple of days ago. How could he possibly be that bad off now? What could do that to him?" Kakashi looked off to the side. "We have some ideas, but I can't say anything about that just yet. Nothing's been confirmed. You and Sasuke can visit him tomorrow. Tsunade-sama wants to monitor him overnight to make sure he's stable enough before she allows visitors." "Oh, okay," Sakura said uncertainly. "What did Sasuke-kun say about all this?" "I still have to tell him." Kakashi turned to leave. "I'll keep the two of you posted on our team's status, as well. Later." He held up a hand in a light wave and stepped onto the street. He didn't look back as he started off towards Sasuke's apartment, but he didn't hear the door close. Sakura must have stayed standing there for a while. It was getting even later now, and Kakashi considered waiting until morning to visit Sasuke. He probably wouldn't appreciate an intrusion this late, but even more than that, Kakashi had no idea how the young Uchiha would react. He had been especially closed off lately, And Kakashi knew, perhaps better than anyone, what had been going through his mind ever since Itachi appeared again. He'd seen it so many times. Shinobi who gave themselves over to revenge to the point where nothing else mattered. He did a good job of hiding it, but Sasuke's attitude toward Naruto in particular had undergone a change. Jiraiya told them how Itachi had brushed Sasuke off for the sake of hunting Naruto. It was a twisted kind of jealousy, to be sure, but understandable. Having planned his moment of revenge for years, only to be ignored in favor of Naruto for a reason he didn't know, how would Sasuke feel about losing his teammate to those same mysterious circumstances? But before he knew it, Kakashi's feet had led him to the front door of Sasuke's apartment. He sighed. Might as well get this over with. Oh, Sasuke, it's me. Sorry I'm late, Kakashi called, knocking on the door. There was no response at first. Maybe Sasuke had gone to sleep already? Kakashi was about to try again, without much enthusiasm, when the door cracked open. At first, all Kakashi could see was a bright red Sharingan eye glaring out of the darkness. But then the door opened wider, and Sasuke's glare smoothed into a neutral expression, eyes shifting back to normal. Kakashi quickly noted the kunai he held behind his back, as well as a few small bruises and scratches on his arms. What happened? Did you get into a fight? Kakashi asked sharply. It's nothing. Sasuke sounded tired. Are we returning to mission soon or not? You might not like this. Kakashi paused. Our team has been suspended indefinitely, but given the state of things right now, it probably won't take long before we're given new assignments to fit our reduced firepower. What are you talking about? Sasuke started angrily. It's not you. Kakashi interrupted. Naruto's been attacked. He's in the hospital now. I can't give you the details yet, but you and Sakura will be able to visit him starting tomorrow, if you want. It might be a while before he can recover. Sasuke's fists clenched. Just like with Sakura, Kakashi could see the young Uchiha's mind working, trying to comprehend the reason someone would go after Naruto. His students were all so easy to read, still, how could he know their thoughts, yet remain unable to do a single thing to help them? Why? Sasuke started in a low voice. Why him? What's he got to do with anything? Tell me what happened. I'm sorry. I can't. Why? We don't know all the details yet. But we're doing everything we can to find out what happened and who is responsible. For now, you'll just have to accept that. Kakashi knew telling Sasuke to accept something was about as futile as trying to stop the sun from rising, but he knew enough to piece the truth together himself, more or less. The bigger concern is what he would do after realizing this was probably the work of Akatsuki. Sasuke glared up. You said it might be a while before he can recover. What do you mean by that? What's wrong with him? Kakashi sighed. To put it very simply, Naruto's life energy and chakra have been almost completely removed from him, leaving his body an empty shell. He has just enough to stay alive, but he wouldn't last long without support. And before you ask how it happened, that's exactly what we're trying to figure out. You can see him tomorrow. Tsunade-sama wants to give you a final checkup anyway. Our team has been unlucky lately, hasn't it? Okay. Kakashi took a step to the side, turning to leave. I'll see you then, and I'll let you guys know about missions when I hear anything. Sasuke remained silent as he left. Kakashi didn't believe for a second that the boy was satisfied with his mediocre explanation. But he certainly understood the most important part. Naruto could easily die, and there was very little any of them could do about it now. Their most hyperactive team member was sometimes idiotic and often annoying, but he had always been a constant. For all of them. There were no guards posted at the hospital. But then, who would come after a half-dead kid now, when there had already been plenty of opportunity to finish him off? It was easy for Sasuke to sneak onto the grounds and find the long-term care room where Naruto was being held. There was a medic in the room when he arrived, checking all the data on the machines and jotting it down. Sasuke waited until they replaced the bed's clipboard and left before quietly opening the window and stepping down into the room. Kakashi hadn't been exaggerating. Even if the severity of Naruto's condition wasn't made completely obvious by all the machines and monitors he was connected to, the Sharingan could see just how faint and weak his teammates' energy was. Normally he was brimming with it, now he could barely be considered alive at all. He stepped closer and looked down at Naruto's unusually pale, still form. It wasn't fair. Sasuke still didn't know which of them was stronger. He didn't understand Naruto's strange power, and he didn't know why Itachi came to the village specifically to seek it out. He had just begun to realize that he'd misjudged some things, and now he'd lost the chance to find out for sure. It was the only thing left to do before leaving. Someone had taken that chance away, and Sasuke didn't know why, and it angered him. Everything about it angered him. But worst of all was wasting time here right now, instead of going to meet the guides that would take him to Otogakure. They wouldn't wait for him forever, but Sasuke told himself the true reason for coming here was far more practical. Even if it meant he would never know the truth, there was still one thing left to be gained from their friendship. He gripped the wrapped handle of the kunai in his hand tightly. No more stalling. He needed those eyes, and if Naruto was done for anyway, why not put what remained of his life to good use? Sasuke poised the knife over his friend's body, the carefully maintained metal shining as it hovered near several vital organs. It would be so easy. There was no one around, and Naruto was completely defenseless. He wouldn't even feel it. There was no better time than now. He could almost hear Itachi's voice in his ear, egging him on. There's no reason to hesitate. Without eyes like mine, you'll never be strong enough. You won't even stand a chance. You're weak. Hatred surged in Sasuke's veins so powerfully that the knife shook. He wanted to rip apart the very image of Itachi inside his mind. But, how satisfying would it be to kill him using the power that he told Sasuke to gain himself? Even if he won, it would still be losing in a way. Was that why he had suggested it? Had he known it would ruin Sasuke's desire to gain that power at all, it didn't matter. When the time came, he would be strong enough. It wasn't necessary to follow everything Itachi said. He would gain power in his own way, to prove without a doubt that he was the stronger one. Sasuke put the kunai back into the holster strapped to his leg. He took a few steps backward before leaving soundlessly, sparing no glance behind as he went out into the night. It was early morning, and Kakashi stood in front of yet another door. This time, it was the office of the Hokage. Kakashi knocked. "Come in." Kakashi entered the office and saw Tsunade standing near the windows. Jiraiya was beside her. "Kakashi!" Jiraiya greeted in his usual jovial tone, but it was with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Kakashi recognized that look. It was the same one he wore when Minato and Kushina died. Tsunade had obviously already informed him about what happened. "Jiraiya-sama." Kakashi inclined his head. "It didn't take you long to get back here." "I was already on the way back," Jiraiya said, crossing his arms. "I finished tying up some loose ends, and started back here to train Naruto. Or at least, that was the plan." "Wait, so?" Tsunade gave a brisk nod. "He hasn't heard anything about Akatsuki capturing the Kyuubi. Not a single clue to connect it to them, even though they have the motivation. From what I can tell, they're still taking bounties and doing mercenary work for whoever will hire them," Jiraiya added. "There hasn't been a peep out of them since Itachi showed up. I came to the conclusion they wouldn't be making any big moves for a few more years at least. That's why I came back. But who else could it be?" Kakashi looked between them. "We know they're hunting the bijou. They're the only ones who would even be capable of taking it from inside the village. I don't know. Their lack of activity right now could very well be a front for something else," Jiraiya said. "All we can do is keep investigating. We can't afford to waste any time." "How long do we have?" he asked Tsunade. "I can't really say," Tsunade said softly, eyes downcast. "The way things are right now, his death won't happen suddenly. He might be able to last for years like that, as long as we can keep his body functioning. It's more likely he'll become too weak to fend off disease or infection, and succumb to one of them." Jiraiya put a hand on her shoulder. "We'll save him. You'll see, before you know it, he'll be awake and complaining about all the time he has to spend in the hospital before we can start training." Sakura sat next to the hospital bed with her hands folded neatly in her lap, watching the ever-so-faint rise and fall of Naruto's chest as he breathed. She looked at the clock sitting on the bedside table. Where was Sasuke? He had yet to come visit, unless he had stopped by earlier on. Sakura chewed on her lower lip, an ominous feeling twisting her stomach. That's what it always felt like when she thought of Sasuke these days. Ever since he'd gotten that strange bruise on his neck. Was he out training again? Did he not care if Naruto was in the hospital? Sakura heard the door open and she looked that way quickly, half expecting to see their other teammates standing there. But no. Tsunade walked in and picked up the clipboard hanging at the foot of the bed, reading over its contents. "Tsunade-sama." Sakura started. Tsunade spared a moment to look up at her. Have you seen Sasuke-kun at all today? I thought Kakashi-sensei said he was coming back one more time for a checkup. No. Tsunade carried the clipboard over to one of the machines and started jotting down a few notes. If he doesn't want to show, that's fine. It was only as an extra precaution anyway. Oh. Tsunade looked up from her work. Sakura bit her lip and squeezed her hands in her lap. Why don't you take a break for a little while? Tsunade suggested. Maybe go to Sasuke's house and see if he'll visit Naruto, at least. Tell him he doesn't have to talk to me or anyone else if he doesn't want to. And then, okay. Sakura nodded and stood up to go. But she didn't leave right away. She looked down at Naruto one more time before turning to Tsunade again. Tsunade-sama, why can't Naruto wake up? Kakashi-sensei didn't really explain it to me, but everyone says you're the best medic nin in the entire world. So if you can't make him better then. Tsunade closed her eyes briefly before looking at Sakura again. Most of his life energy is gone. Even if he's healthy otherwise, he can't wake up unless it comes back. But how could it just go missing like that? An enemy's jutsu, most likely. That's why we have to find out who is responsible and get them to reverse it. So, isn't there anything we can do? The rest of our team, I mean. Sakura rubbed the elbow of her other arm with her hand. I don't know. Tsunade gave a small smile. For now, why don't you just work on getting the whole team on board with supporting him, alright? We'll see what follows from there. Alright. I'll be back soon. Sakura took a deep breath and left the room in a determined stride. It was evening, and Kakashi was wandering the streets. They weren't any closer to figuring out who had attacked Naruto, why, or even how. There were still no clues to indicate that an outside party was responsible. It was as if the Kyuubi really had just disappeared, and Naruto's essence along with it. Jiraiya decided to leave once again to further his investigation. As they had no other suspects, all he could really do was try to check up on Akatsuki again. Kakashi's mind was numb from the constant speculation, as well as a lack of sleep. He decided to stroll downtown to the dango shop to take a break. Kakashi-sensei. He turned around to see Sakura jogging toward him, looking upset. No, not upset, frightened. Sakura? What's wrong? Kakashi asked urgently as she paused, leaning on her knees to catch her breath. I went to Sasuke-kun's house to see if he would come to the hospital. But he never answered. I waited and waited. Even if he didn't want to go, I don't think he would just. I looked around at all the training fields too, but I could never find him. Kakashi-sensei, about that wound on his neck, and what Orochimaru said. Kakashi cursed colorfully. It was one thing after another. He had a bad feeling Sakura's suspicions were true. He'd wondered how Sasuke would react, but he hadn't expected him to pursue Orochimaru's offer so soon. Go tell Tsunade-sama about this. Kakashi instructed. I'll check at his apartment again, just to make sure. We can't let him go to Orochimaru. Sakura cried. Someone has to stop him. I understand. I know. Kakashi was hardly aware of what he was saying. Just go find her. We might not be too late. Sakura had tears budding in her eyes, but she nodded and ran off toward the Hokage Tower. Kakashi rushed even faster towards Sasuke's place, feeling like he was chasing after a cobweb-thin thread flapping in the wind. Of course it was too late. It always was.